Today's date is May 15th, 1997. Survivor's name is Shulamit Lack. Maiden name is Gara. Interviewer's name is Debbie Portnoy. The city and state is Queens, New York. Country is United States of America. The language is in English. My name is Debbie Portnoy. That's DebbiePortnoy. Today's date is May 15th, 1997. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack. The interview is being conducted in Fresh Meadows, Queens, New York, United States of America. Please tell me your name.
My name is Shulamit Maria Lack.
Can you please spell that for me?
S-H-U-L-A-M-I-T. Maria is M-A-R-I-A. Lack, L-A-C-K.
What was the name that you were born with?
Gara, G-A-R-A. I say my family name first because in Hungarian that's the way they say it. Maria, M-A-R-I-A. Ida, I-D-A. Erzsébet, which is Elizabeth, E-R-Z-S-A-B-E-T.
Do you have a Hebrew name?
I picked myself my Hebrew name, Shulamit.
What city or town were you born in?
I was born in Budapest, Hungary, 1924, September 22nd.
How old are you now?
72.
Tell me about Budapest.
Well, Budapest was the capital of Hungary. It was a very beautiful city because the Danube is in the middle. One side is Buda with the mountains. Pest is a flat part, which is very pretty. It was when I was born, it was beautiful and it was a very good life. Matter of fact, it was called the Paris of the middle of Europe because it was really a marvelous life then there, that time when I was born.
Tell me about the Jewish community of Budapest.
You had in Budapest two types of Jewish community. You had the very Orthodox or the very assimilated. My family belonged to the assimilated part. My father was a lawyer and so we didn't keep the kosher house. We were definitely Jewish, the mean of tradition. My mother did lit candles every Friday night, but then she sit back and did her work, whatever she liked to do, and it wasn't a question. She did it from tradition, she did it because in their hearts they were Jewish, but it didn't mean to go to the temple or belong to any temple or anything like that. My grandparents were Orthodox, but not my parents anymore.
Describe your home to me.
Well, my home was a very lovely, very nice home. When I was born, we had really plenty of help. My father had a car, we had a chauffeur, I had a nanny, and we had a very good life that time.
And the home itself?
Well, we had an apartment in Budapest and we had a villa in Sashalom. And my father's office was in Budapest, and in the summertime we went to Sashalom, and then we went away for places, you know, for ferrying. And it was very nice.
Who lived in the home with you?
Well, as long as I was small, I had a nanny who lived with me, and we had a cook, and we had help. We had a superintendent in the house who was taking care of the garden. And that was it, I think.
Tell me about your parents. What was your father's name?
My father's name was Dr. Leopold Gara, Lipót in Hungarian. My mother's name was Margit, which is Margaret. Her maiden name was Lazar.
And you mentioned that your father was a lawyer.
Right.
What outside activities or interests did your father have besides the law?
Well, he was during the war a hussar officer, so he was a good horseman, and I really don't know what he was also, I don't know how to say it, when you have a, I, I don't know how to say it in English.
Say it the way you're comfortable.
It's a long thing, a sword, okay. He know how to fight with the sword, and he did that sometimes, you know, as a sport, because that's belonged to the as a hussar officer. Naturally, he had to do that. Matter of fact, he was a very good Jew, so anybody who would offend him as a Jew, he was calling him out for a duel, because he wouldn't let it get away with. So I mean, he was a very strong character in that way.
You had mentioned that he was involved in the military.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
In the First World War, he was an hussar officer, a cavalry officer. And matter of fact, at the end of the second, he was highly decorated. He had I don't again how to say it in English. He had the highest decoration what you can get for heroism. And after the First World War, it was a short span that the communists took over Hungary, and he was the one who organized in his caserna, in his military unit, the upheaval against the communists. So he was, because of that, caught and put in jail in Budapest. And matter of fact, his comrade in the jail was the first adjutant of Horthy, who was later the head of the Hungarian government. Not the government, but the country. And they both were supposed to die by hanging. On the last minute, when the uprising ended, the communist uprising ended, they were freed by an Italian colonel. And that's how my father survived. But all this was before he met my mother and before I was born, so I knew all this only from stories. But it's definitely true, because when I went back to Budapest during the communist regime, sometimes in 55 or 56, and I wanted to find out something about the houses that my parents had, and I was asking some lawyer to look up stories. He said to me, you better don't look up anything, because the communists will don't look very kindly of you, because we have all the papers that what your father was doing during the communist regime. So it's definitely true, because I said to myself, okay, I better shut up and get out from here as fast as I can.
Tell me about your mother.
My mother was a very lovable, very intelligent, very talented lady. She was a teacher. She never worked as a teacher. She spoke 4 languages. She was a marvelous housewife. She can cook and she can bake, that everybody loved her baking and her cooking, and she was very handy with her hands. She did beautiful works. All my dresses, she was with the needles, how you call that, when you're making from wool something, a sweater or something, she was doing that very beautifully. Matter of fact, when I went to ice skate, she was making my dresses for that. She was very talented. I wish I would be half as talented as my mother was.
What's your most memorable memory of your mother?
Well, you mean my most awful memory of my mother is when I lost
before the
her.
war, pre-war, as a child. What was your memory of your mother?
Well, that she was crying that my father makes a boy out of me, because my father wanted a boy and my mother wanted a girl, and I tried to please my father, so I tried to do everything and I was a tomboy, so my mother was crying. Every evening he was looking at me before they took a bath, how many black marks I have, and I had to give her the account from where I got them. So she was a very strict mommy, and a very good one.
Tell me about your schooling. Start from elementary and work our way up.
I went to the first 3 years, I went to a school which was an internat, which means that I slept there. I was there during the time. I came home to the summer, but and for the vacations. But otherwise I was there in that school. And it called Erdei Iskola. and it was in Zugliget, which is a part of Buda, which belongs to Budapest. After the first 3 years, we went out to Sashalom, and I finished my elementary school there and my middle school there.
Is there any reason why you moved from the schools?
Yes, my mother feels that she doesn't want to move back and forth, and she would rather be there. And then in around 39, oh no, much sooner, I don't remember exactly when, she decided that it's too dangerous for a Jew, because it started to be anti-Semiut, so it's too dangerous to have a house in the country. It was in the suburb of Budapest, so it's better to move back to Budapest because it's easier to get lost in a bigger city than in a smaller one. Also, our house was close to the to one of the airports, so she was afraid she was a very smart woman, and she was afraid when it comes bombing or anything, you know. So we sold that house and we moved into Budapest.
When you were in the first elementary school, did you ever have any anti-Semitic experiences?
Not in that school where I wasn't in the internet, because that was a very elite school, and generally people there, it costed a lot of money. They were intelligent enough to keep their mouth shut. But when I went in Sashalom, that was a regular school. And there my first experiment, there I had my first experiments, that one of the children threw me into the lap of another child, and she said to, don't throw that dirty Jew to my lap. And actually that's what's made me really aware of it, that I am Jewish, because before my parents were so much Hungarians that I had to stay up when I heard the hymnus, the Hungarian anthem. I had to stand up haptak even in my bed, because my father would kill me if I don't do that. But after that I decided that I am Jewish and I am not Hungarian. That was around 36, when the bad news came from Palestine that the Arabs are killing the Jews. And somehow I was crying for the Jews whom I never knew who lived in Palestine, that they get killed. So I guess I had some Jewish feeling in me, even unconsciously. So I was trying to tell my parents that don't tell me I am Hungarian when they say that I'm a dirty Jew. And don't tell me that I have to be a good Hungarian when I am proud of my Jewish heritage, which is much, much older than the Hungarian. Hungary exists 1,000 years, and the Jewish tradition exists 3,000 years. So why should I give up something which is 3,000 years old for something which is 1,000 years old? So by me, Zionism and Judaism was some very conscious something from the very beginning.
What type of organizations, Jewish organizations, were you involved in?
First, as long as we lived in Sashalom, in Non. But when we moved into Budapest, I was in the Vico, and then I moved from the Vico to a Halutz organization. Halutz organization is a pioneer organization, and we had a few of them in Hungary. I belonged to Hanoar HaTzioni. This was an organization which was in the middle. It wasn't on the left side like the Shomer HaTzair, or wasn't Orthodox or religious like the Mizrahi, or wasn't on the right side like the Betar. It was in the middle. Our affiliation was only to build Palestine, to make a homeland for the Jews. It wasn't any ideal to make it communist or socialist or whatever, nationalist. We just wanted a homeland for the Jews, that's all.
Did you ever receive any type of training?
Well, you had, like in every scout organization, people get training. People, according to their age, belong to certain groups, and then as they get older, they advance for a older and older group. So I started out with a younger group, and then I later became one of the older one, and then I became one of the head of these little groups. You know, everyone had a certain amount of people who, according where they lived, that it shall be more or less centrally located for the meetings what we held. And so I was one of them who were giving lectures on Zionism and Jewish history and so far and so on to my group. But naturally, this was all before, what I am talking about was all before 44 March 19, when the Germans marched in.
So getting back to pre-war, before all that took place, how old were you when you were involved in the Zionist organization?
Well, I think I was 16 when I joined the organization, 15 or 16, something like that.
After elementary school, what type of schooling did you have?
It was middle school.
And after that?
Well, I finished that school, and after that, it was numerus clausus, so a Jewish kid cannot get into the university. And anyway, my mother was had that opinion, and she was right, that it doesn't matter who comes to our country. If Hitler comes, we are Jewish. If Stalin comes, we are bourgeois. So I better learn to sew, because that, if I don't want to get as a maid, with the Hungarian language, if I have to run away, I got not very far. So she put me into a lady who made girdles and brass. It was a salon in Budapest where she had made her girdles and brass. And I learned there. I was like how you say it when you learn a miktsua? When you learn a miktsua, I'm talking to you Hebrew. When you learn a profession.
An apprentice?
Yes, I can't pronounce it. Apprentice. And I was there 2 years learning that, and after that I didn't continue to work there. I went to work somewhere else because she was Jewish and she had to give up her salon. So
what year was that?
It was 39. It's already, in Hungary it wasn't too bad, but she decided that she had enough. She had a small salon, she was on her own. It wasn't a big whatever, so I went and I worked in a larger unit, but there I didn't make girdles, I made ties, men ties I was sewing there.
Now you mentioned that the family was assimilated.
Right.
Did you celebrate any religious holidays at all, and in what way?
Yes, we did celebrate religious holidays. As long as my grandfather was alive, every Seder we went to him, and after he died, my mother's oldest brother kept the family together for Seder nights.
Describe that, Seder night.
It was beautiful. It's hard to describe, it was so long ago. But it was nice because all my uncles and cousins came and we were singing it. It was very beautiful, very lovely.
Which was your best holiday?
Well, again, actually, that was I have to say, because I had to fight my mother every Pesach that I don't want to eat bread and I want to eat matzah. And you know, they didn't, my mother always said, if you want to pray, you can pray home, and you don't have to go to the temple and look the dresses of the women, what they are talking about, and the maids, what they are talking about. So she had a different opinion. And the Zionist organization I belonged to, Hanwar Hatzioni, wasn't a religious organization. Everybody could be religious or not religious or whatever. We had Oneg Shabbats, which was very nice, which I remember. We went to Hollán utca, it was a place not far where I lived, Friday nights, and that was perhaps the most beautiful because everybody was together and we were singing Kabbalat Shabbat, and it was very nice.
Do you remember a particular song that you used to like to sing?
Yeah,
do you know the tune?
Yeah, well, I can't sing, I have no voice, but Lechod Haldi, you know, the beautiful song, matter of fact, it was so much a memory for me that when I came here in America and joined the temple, it was the main reason because I hoped for a Friday night Oneg Shabbat, but unfortunately our temple does not have anything. And when the first time I went, I was the only female and I almost died because they made such a big They were so surprised to see a female that they didn't know what to do with me, and I was almost dying. I felt so uncomfortable. That was the end of story.
Tell me about how things started to change. What did you know about the rise of the Nazis?
Well, we knew a lot about it because from 1940 already, we got people who belonged to our organization in Poland, in Krakow and Katowice. They came over somehow, they illegally, of course, and they were telling us what happening about the ghettos, and later in 41, 42, even about the terrible things which was happening outside the ghettos, and later in 43, we get people who already knew about Auschwitz and the gas chambers, and we knew exactly everything what was happening. The only problem was nobody wanted to believe us. My own parents, my own family, when I told them what's going on, I had the answer that I'm looking through Polish glasses, and it's impossible. It cannot happen to the Hungarian Jews. It can happen to everybody in the world, but not to the Hungarian Jews. Horthy won't let it. Horthy will take care of us. It's true, Horthy really didn't wanted it, and as long as he was able to, he tried to make the Hungarian Jews' life easier till March 1944, till Hitler marched into Hungary. Actually, the Hungarian Jews lived in a fairly comfortable position. I mean, we didn't have ghettos, we didn't have to wear any yellow stars. We had laws against the Jews, yes.
Tell me about those laws as they came about and how it affected you personally.
They didn't affect me personally at all. They affected people who had business, because a Jew cannot have any business by him. And it was also not so terrible, because what they did, they put a Christian friend name on the front, and that was taken care of. So it doesn't belong to them, the business, it belonged to the Christian, and that was taken care of, you know. We weren't allowed to have any mates, any Christian employees, and as I said, it was numerus clausus, so we couldn't go into a university, and in certain places you couldn't get employment or couldn't get. But it wasn't really so tragic. The not Hungarian Jews, the Polish Jews, if they caught them, then they were deported. But as long as you were a Hungarian citizen, it's really nothing happened to you.
Now, you mentioned that you had started to hear about what was happening in Poland. Give me specific instances of what you heard and when you heard it.
Well, we belong to the Zionist organization, and we get these people coming from Poland. We were trying to hide them, and then trying to teach them a little bit Hungarian, giving them false papers, and trying to find them employment.
And what did you do?
I was, particularly that time, I wasn't hiding, because I couldn't even tell my mother that I am, because they were afraid that it's illegal, and all the organization, matter of fact, was illegal. In that time, the Zionist organization was underground, it was illegal. All our activities, all our meetings was illegal. So we had to be very careful not to have a high profile. But when we met on our Oneg Shabbats, or when we met in our group meetings, then the Polish fellows were there, and they told us all the stories, what happening in the ghetto, what happening in Auschwitz, what happening in the gas chambers, that people get killed and gassed, and so we knew that from them. Matter of fact, they tried to teach us, to prepare us how to survive if the Nazis come in and we have to go through the same what they did. And that's why we had in 43, in December, in Balatonboglár, which is a place next to the Plattensee, and it's more a summer resort than a winter resort, so we could make there a moshava, where I think it was 2 weeks, where the Polish fellows came and they taught us what they went through. Naturally, we couldn't, they taught us also how to work with weapons, but weapons resistance in Hungary was a hopeless proposition because of the geography of Hungary. We didn't have that large open spaces what they had where, with that many forests where you can hide. And so we really didn't much think of that. We learned how to use weapons, but mainly what they taught us were how to make fire, how to live outside, how to hide, how to, and that was the first time I learned the partisan songs from them. One of fellows, I remember his name was Leon Blatt. He was one of the fellows who was from Krakow, and he killed a SS officer there, and matter of fact, when the Germans came in, then we operated on him that he shall not be circumcised anymore in my apartment. I mean, not we, not I, but the doctor did it. But I mean, that was one of the facts that I remember. And we had more of the Polish fellows, but unfortunately, I do not remember their names anymore. It's too many years passed since to remember names.
What other activities did they teach you at the camp?
Well, I think that's Kollel really everything with, and I am quite sure if not that camp, I would not have been able to survive the lager, because I really came for a very spoiled atmosphere from home. I wouldn't know how to make fire or how to live in a zelt or how to do anything, which I later had to endure. So I think if not the Zionist organization, I wouldn't sit here today. Also mentally, that was the main reason, because I sincerely believed that we will survive, not I personally, but our organization, and that we will get to Palestine, not I, but somebody, and we will have a country. So somehow that belief that, yes, the Am Yisrael High, that's kept me alive, and that organization there. And you know, you can't survive alone. But when you have that much help from so many people who believe the same thing what you, and you are very young, we were 17, 18, 19 years old, all of us, it makes a very big difference. Today I wonder how I went through. Today I would die the first day.
What did your parents know about your activities?
Almost nothing, because you see, as long as I was in Witzow, my mother was all right with me. But when she heard that I am in a Halutz organization, for them, it was an unbelievable thing that I want to be as a farmer in Israel, I mean in Palestine. My mother, matter of fact, said if it wouldn't be a war, I would buy you a ticket and fly over Palestine and show you how you live there. And I think with your spoiled nature, you would not want to be there at all. So they weren't very much, I had to take my gloves and my hat every time when I went down to the meeting, and I left it by the superintendent of the house, and I picked it up when I came home, that my mother thinks that I shall wear it. And when somebody from the organization come to look for me and ring the bell and ask for Shulamit, then my mother gives the answer, I have only one daughter and her name is Maria. So, I mean, she didn't look very kindly on this. But I was a very bad girl, so I didn't listen.
We're going to change tapes now. My name is Debbie Portnoy, and I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack. Mrs. Lack, we had ended off the first tape talking about how things started to change. Continue from there.
We, as I said to you before, we knew about what could happen. We hoped it won't happen, but we knew what could happen. We were, at that time, already underground. The organization was illegal, but the head of these different the groups organized themselves every Sunday, and we went out to the mountains of Buddha to try to prepare ourselves, how we would organize ourselves in case something happened.
Can you describe some discussions on where this group was heading and what you were going to be doing?
Okay. On March 19, which was 1944, it was a Sunday, And we met outside in Buda, and we were discussing that if the Germans came in, and we have to start first of all to forge papers, because that's the first thing what everybody will need to be able to disappear underground, and even just to walk on the streets, because they will ask you for identification, so you need Christian papers, which will be naturally forged.
You mentioned we. Who's we?
We is the people in the organization. That was Dr. Roth Siegfried, Weiss Mordi, Samoshi, myself, Dov Borshodi, and a few more who were that time there.
Were there any other females in the head of the organization?
Fischer Hava, and we were more girls, but not exactly as head, and we all worked together. And furthermore, what the emphasis was on, that nobody knows really. We shall know so little people as we possibly can, which means we shall have one person to whom they report, and that person shall report to another person, that if you get caught and you get beaten up, then you cannot, even if you wanted to, because you can't survive otherwise, you cannot say names because you don't know any more names. And naturally not to have anything written down which can be taken from you, and so that's what we were talking about. And when we finished around 1 o'clock and started to go back home, and we get to the bridge to cross from Buda to Pest, we already saw the tanks, the German tanks, coming into Budapest. And we knew already that that's the end. So we have to put into actual work what we were talking about and what we were thinking of. Also, it was a law by that time that the men had to go into work camps. That actually was a military unit, but without weapons. By the beginning, they were in Hungary. Later, they were transported to the border without any Yugoslavia or to the Russian front, and very few of them survived. But I am going overboard. I am going ahead of me. Anyway, that moment when we went back home, all of us knew already what happened. I get back and I said to my mother, that's it. The Germans occupied us. Really, that's what happened. Horthy was actually a prisoner in his own palace. He could do very little for us anymore, and Eichmann took over. And
when you got home, what did you tell your parents?
I told them that that's it. The Germans marched in, and the law for the Jews ended in Hungary. We are lawless people, and that's all what's happening. Naturally, they still waited what will happen. Now, the first thing what the Germans did, that was the Judenrat. I don't have to explain. I think by now everybody knows what the Judenrat is.
Did you have any connection with that organization, or did your family?
No, but the only thing was that the Judenrat, my mother asked me to please go to the Judenrat and find out if our apartment can be taken away, because the Germans requisited nice apartments, and we lived opposite the Margareteninsel in Pozsonyút, which was a nice neighborhood. And my mother was afraid that perhaps they will requisite our apartment. So, and also we had another relative, a second or third cousin, I don't know, of my mother, who was a lawyer and who lived not far from his name was Dr. Szegedy. Szegedy, yes. And my mother wanted me to find out what happened to him. And so I asked me if I am already by the Judenrat, which was in Siputza, where was the hitközség, no, how you say hitközség? I don't know, that was before where the Yiddish organization. So I went there to find out, and they said to me, no, our home cannot be requisited because my father, because of his high decoration, had a so-called Horthy-Schutzpatz, which so this was before for the whole family. From the moment the Germans came in, it was only for him. But the apartment was on his name, so the apartment cannot be taken away. My father wasn't in the apartment, he was sick, he was in the hospital, but that doesn't matter because the apartment was on his name. And I went over to that relative to see what's happening to them, and I find his wife crying, telling me that his husband was taken away the day before. From the Jewish gymnasium came children with an invitation to the Rabbi Seminarium to go in there with with some certain things that he could take with him, and he went in there, and that was there, and she didn't see him since. So I understood already, knowing what happened, what that means. So I went back home and I said to my mother, Mother, I was there, the apartment is safe, but you aren't, because I was at Szegedi, and I know that her husband was taken away, and I don't know if that could happen to you too, but in any case, if the bell rings and you see a child, a young fellow, with the emblem on the hat from the Jewish gymnasium, please, if he asks you if you are home, and if you are, you say you are not, and don't take over the letter and don't sign for it and don't do nothing. I just finished the sentence. The doorbell rang. I went to the door to open the door, and the fellow from the Jewish gymnasium was standing before me and asking for Frau Dr. Leopold Gara. So I said, she's not home. In that moment, my mother was behind me, and with all her intelligence, she was asking me, what happening? And the fellow says to him, I'm looking for Frau Dr. Gara. So my mother says, instinctively, I am. I thought I am dying right then and there. And I said to Mother, I just finished explaining to you. So she looked at me, and she was, I still see her face. She says to me, so what shall I do now? And the fellow says to me, you have to sign the letter, otherwise I will report you. So I said to her, just sign the letter, and I will see what we can do then. So she signed the letter. Naturally, what it was the invitation to go to Rökszilád next morning to the Rabbi Seminarium. And I knew if I take her in there, from there she will go to Auschwitz. It's no two ways about it. So I said to her, look, I will try to get you false papers, and we will simply disappear, and that will be the end of the story. So I went for another organization which called Pártfogó Iroda, and I was looking for Dr. Roth Siegfried, who was the head of the part of the organization, and I wanted papers from him. But he wasn't there, and also they didn't have any papers in that moment, so they said to me that I have to find some place to hide for the first few days till they can get me some papers. Matter of fact, my cousin Erzsi worked in that office, and I talked to her, and she told me that another uncle of mine was taken already, and he went into Auschwitz with all these papers. And when I heard it, I almost passed out, because I knew that my mother thinks highly on that person, and if she will hear that he went in, she will want to follow also, because she will say that she listens more to him, what he is doing, than what I am saying. So when I get home, already my aunt, the wife of that gentleman, was there, and another aunt, and they talked my mother into it, that she shall go into Rökszilád and she shall not hide. And I was fighting with them. It was a whole screaming match there. I was screaming and telling them, please hide my mother for a few nights till I can get a paper, and then after that I will take her away. No, you are risking the whole family, you are putting everybody in danger, you cannot do that. I said, can't you people understand that it can't be anything more awful happening to my mother than it will happen when she goes in there. She will wind up in Auschwitz, she will wind up in a gas chamber. I am crazy what I am talking about. They are screaming at me and they don't want her to believe me, and my poor mother was already decided no, she doesn't want to. So they went away, they went home, and I will never forget that night with my mother. We were sitting the whole night and talking, and I said to her, Mother, believe me, I know what I am talking about. And she said to me, you know, I am apologizing for not letting you be a Zionist, for making yourself so much trouble. Excuse me. She said, but I was a decent person all my life, and I can't picture myself to live with false papers, with false identity. My mother did not look Jewish at all, so it wouldn't be any hardship to hide her. But she said, look, I was an honest person all my life. I never lied. I never did anything which is unlawful. I can do it. I will go in. Just do me a favor. You run away. But let them know where you are. If I come back, that I shall be able to find you. And I went down to the pharmacy, who knew us, and I took Veronal, which is a sleeping pill, a very strong sleeping pill. And I brought it back to my mother and I gave it to her and I asked her, Mother, just do me one favor. Before you go into the gas chamber, take that tablets. It's easier than the cyanide. She took it with her. Next morning, I took her into the Röksülárd utca, to the Rabbi Seminarium where she had to. And she was asking me, please bring your father's papers, and perhaps they will let me out. I said, Mother, if you go in there once, I can bring whatever I want. It won't help, because it's not for you, it's for him, and not for us anymore. It won't help. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing we can do is that you don't go in. No way I can get you out when you ever went in there. So from the Röksülárd, all these people, they took to chapel. It's a place in Hungary. And from there, she was deported to Auschwitz. Needless to say that I never saw her, but I met people who told me that she went into the gas chamber. She did not take the medication what I gave her. She went into the gas chamber. So that's one of my most tragic moments, because after she left, I naturally started to forge papers in my apartment. The apartment became one of the main sanctuary for people whom we brought out from the ghettos to hide in my apartment, for people who came from Poland to stay for a few hours or to hide there for a certain amount of time. It wasn't an easy proposition because the alarms were going on, and every time when the alarms were on, everybody was supposed to go down to the cellar. And naturally, I could not take these people down, and I had to hide them in the apartment. And the doors had to be open because that was the law, that you have to leave the doors open because of fires, that everybody could go in. So it was a very risky business. If anybody would go in and see these people, I would be shot on place. But naturally, who cared about it? We did whatever we could. And
you mentioned that people were getting out of the ghetto and coming to the apartment. Explain that process.
Well,
how did they come out?
Most of the girls and who were in the organization, and also a few boys who did not go in to this army, which was for the Jews, this army without a weapon, went underground and with false Christian papers, went down to the ghettos, took with them false papers, left them there for these people, and whenever they had the opportunity to run away, then they ran away, came up to Budapest, and they came to my house or to other people's houses where they could hide for as long as we could find something for them.
Which ghettos?
Except Budapest, all the cities had ghettos. Eichmann did a very good job. He did in 2 months what in Poland they did in 2 or 3 or 4 years. Actually, in end of July, in Hungary was no more Jew left. Hungary was Judenrein, except from Budapest. The only place where it wasn't a ghetto that time, it was started to so-called csillagos houses, which means that you were houses were only for Jews. And then later, at that time I wasn't, I was already in jail and in concentration camp, but later you had the Schutzpasses from Wallenberg, from the Sweden, from Switzerland, from the Red Cross, but again that was much later, after the other government, Szálasi's government came.
Did you ever go into the ghettos yourself and leave the papers?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I went in, in one camp. It was a military camp, where I wanted to bring out Dov Borshody. That was later my first husband. He was my boyfriend at that time, and he went into this military unit, and I knew that I want him to get out and cross the border. So the only way for him to get out was with papers. So I took the false papers, went down to that place, and I forgot my name, but was on the paper. And when the commanding officer was asking me, I had to think for a moment, what is my name? Because you change papers, from time to time. And he immediately realized what's happening, but he was a decent human being, and even so that I am Jewish, he let me get away. And I could give the papers, the false papers, to Dov, so he got his papers, and later he did come up to Budapest with this. And then another time I went down also, but that was a more successful period. There I was a little bit more used to, so I knew my name already, and it didn't happen. But you had to have a poker face, because when you walked out from the house with the yellow star, because that time we had to wear a yellow star, and naturally they knew you, so you had to put it on when you walked out from your house. Then the next corner you had to take it off and put it in your pocket if you wanted to move around more or less freely on the street. And you never know whom you will find on the next corner and who will ask identifications. And it wasn't just the identification, not just the papers, but they also asked you for the prayers. Now luckily in that internet where I was, it was very few Jews, and in Sashalom were also very few Jews in the school. And when the Christian children had their religious hour, I was sitting there, because what shall I do? Sit outside alone by myself with the second? We were only two Jewish. So it wasn't no point, so I learned all these prayers. So I was teaching everybody in my organization all these prayers, because that was, for boys it was no necessity. That was very easy to know if you are Jewish or not. But for girls, that was the first thing. If they didn't like the paper, or if they even liked it, but they wanted to be 100% sure, that they asked you to say an Ave Maria or whatever prayer it was. So you had to know it, because otherwise, how can you be Christian if you don't know that, right? So that was another thing which I was doing, teaching them all these prayers. And
how did you get the papers?
The papers, it was a very, the beginning, what we needed some original papers to know, to give it to the printer. We had people who worked by printers, and they printed it later without the printer knowledge. But they had to have the originals to see what they have to do and what kind of paper they need for it. So what we did, we went to the office where you had to, you see, everybody had to ask for papers, naturally, not just Jews. The Christians needed all their papers too, because when they were caught, they had their identification too. So we went to the office where gave up the birth certificates. And we just said a name, which we just figured a name. We didn't know if the person exists or doesn't exist or whatever. Now, this was a big pult where the person had the books where the names were in. So we stand before that, and we told the name. The man opened the book, looked for the name. And we were trying to look up some names that way and memorize it. Now, naturally, he didn't find that name, and he said it must be in another part of the city. The person must be born in, because you were registered where you were born. So the person was, like here is Flushing and Jamaica. So in Budapest also, they were different bezirks where you had to go. So he could tell us, oh, that name is not in my book, so perhaps he was born in another place of the city, go there. So we try to memorize the name. When we get out, we try to write down the name. And the next day, not the same person, but because he could recognize us, but another person came back with the name and asked for the birth certificate. Now, even that way it was dangerous, because you didn't know who's standing next to you. You could have asked for the birth certificate and the person is standing just next to you, or the person could be dead. So it was a very dangerous, but that was the only way how we could get it. And that way we went, all of us, not just I, to one office to the next, one bezirk to the next, and we collected original papers.
How many times did you do that?
Oh, I did that very, very many times.
How many?
Oh, I did it almost every single day, at least 2 weeks, with my belly being in my clothes, because it was not, nobody was such a big hero, but we did it. And we had all these papers, and when you had the birth certificate, then you went to the church and asked for the christening letter, because you needed that too. But that was easier already, because you could say that, somebody else was sending you blah, 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 and you need the christening letter. And you get that, and then you had to forge your address where you live, because everybody in Hungary before, it has nothing to do with the Nazis. That was way back, that when you lived in an apartment, you have to go to the police and you had to say that I am living here, and when you moved out, you had to have a paper which says that you moved out, and even when you went away for 2 weeks vacation, you had to do that you had recognized yourself in and out. It was a police state in that way. It was the same thing in Germany too. So because of that, it was much harder to disappear, like in Poland, where something like that did not existed. Our biggest problem was with this paper, because as long as they caught you on the street for identification, and if you had a poker face, you saw your identification, you could get away with it. But when you were already taken to the police and you saw your paper, the first thing what they did, they called up to find out if you really lived there. And if you didn't live there, which was the case in most of the cases, then they knew already that you are Jewish. You see, later when there were a lot of bombing all over the country and people came up, it was easier to get a real paper, because you moved in somewhere, you don't have your other papers because the bombs ruined everything, blah, blah, blah. It was easier. But in the beginning, it was impossible. You really had to do something, so it was a very, very hard proposition.
So those were your main underground activities?
Not just that. After that, naturally, we didn't went anymore to the offices, but we gave the paper, and Siegfried and Weissmore, they went in contact with the fellows who did it and they printed it, and the only thing we did, we just filled out the papers. We get the empty forms, they brought it to my apartment, and Siegfried and I and a few others, we were writing these papers. Then my other main activity was really that to get the groups together, 10, 12 people, to send them over to Romania, because we knew that down to Yugoslavia it was much too dangerous. The easiest way were through Transylvania to Bucharest. And we had a fellow by the name of Juda Levi Pizzi, who were from Cluj, from Kolozsvár, and he looked like a guy with blonde hair and blue eyes, and he did that job, that he came up from Kolozsvár, came to me, picked up a group from 10 or 12 people and went back with them to Kolozsvár or to Nagyvárad, and from there he hid them for a certain amount of time, and then during the night took them to the border, and by the border he had the farmer who took them across the border. Naturally, it wasn't that simple either, and not every group went from my apartment. A few of them went from the streets that they sat down on a park, and Pizzi just walked around, didn't went close to them, tried to memorize their faces, and then they were before already and get the papers. They had their papers, the false papers already, and then they went with him. The groups also were always divided in the different wagons of the train. Nobody sit together, and they said if somebody will be caught, you don't do nothing because you can't help anyway. The only thing will happen is that you will be caught too. So generally, when 10 or 12 people are going, perhaps 7 or 8 went through, the rest was caught, unfortunately. And you never know who will be caught, because it's also must depend how the face of the person will give you away. Now, a lot of people went from my apartment. At least 100 people went, not in one group, but during the 2 months from my apartment.
And that was from when till when?
It was, you see, my mother was taken to Rögszilárd in 20th of April, 44. So from that moment on, I started to work, and I was caught myself at the border in July. So that was the time period when it happened. And I was caught because I really wasn't caught because of that, but I had to leave my apartment because one of the girls whom they caught at the border was beaten, and she had to tell that she got the papers for me, and she started out from me. And not just she, but other people also told my name. So one day, the superintendent from the house, who thought that I became a girl of the nights, and I wanted her to believe it, because you see, he knew that I was very strictly held by my parents. That I couldn't, 8 o'clock in the evening, I had to be home, otherwise the world will go down. And now all of a sudden, so many boys and girls are coming to my house and coming and going and coming and going. So I was giving him money not to ask questions, you know.
We're going to change tapes now. Tape 3, my name is Debbie Portnoy. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack.
Yes, I was telling you how I ruined my reputation, because I figured it's much easier to the superintendent of the house to believe that I became a street girl than anything else, and that way I hoped he will not ask questions. Naturally, I gave him plenty of money to keep his mouth shut. That's besides the point. But even so, I wanted that if anybody in the house asks what's going on here, he shall say, and not anything else. So anybody else who perhaps want to look into the matter shall forget about it, because that time, what my morale is, that was the least problem on anybody's mind. So that was the easiest way out. So anyway, when the police arrived by that superintendent with the order to arrest me, he came up and he said to me, Fräulein, the police is downstairs, they sent me up to bring you down. And I have here the letters, orders that I have to bring you down. So I looked the order and it says Dr. Maria Gara, Dr. Gara Maria rather in Hungarian. So I said to him, listen, something is not on order here. I have no doctorate, my father is in the hospital and my mother was taken a long time ago, so go back please and tell them that that person does not exist. It exists a Gara Maria, but not a Dr. Gara Maria. And the Hungarian, they are very exact, like the Germans. So you can't arrest me on a paper which says Dr. Garamaria. So he went back and he told the same thing to the Hungarian police. Thank God they are so stupid that they got that. And they said, okay, we'll leave you that order with you. We are going away. We will bring you another one. But in the meantime, if she comes home, then you please catch her and don't let her to go away till we get back. Needless to say that I didn't wait it. I had to wait till 3 o'clock because I knew that people are coming up to my apartment to meet Pizzi to go to the border. And I didn't want them to be caught, so I stayed there till 3 o'clock, hoping that they will not get back till then. I sent them all away and told them nobody shall ever come again to my apartment. I took my 2 valises and I walked out and I walked to Zuglo, where I previously tried to get myself a room just for this case. But when I arrived, the lady for whom I rented the room looked very suspicious on me. And she said to me, you know, I don't know, I have to go to the police, I have to ask them questions. So I said to her, you know what, let me just leave my valise here. I have to do something anyway, I will come back in a half an hour or so, and then we can go to the police. So she said, fine. I left my 2 valises there, and needless to say, I never get back there again. Oh yes, I did get back after the war to get my 2 valises. But that was much later. And I decided to live in the mountains of Buda. 2 fellows lived with me there, Klein Efra and, oh God. The first time when I talked to you, I still remember the name, and now I don't remember. Perhaps I will remember later. And these 2 were with me. 2 weeks we lived in the mountains of Buda because I wanted to finish up to send the groups who are still there and whom I still had to be sent. What I did, I slept under some tree or bush or something. I had a red costume which was from wool, so it wasn't, ruined so much when you sleep on it. And in the morning I get up very early and I washed myself in Hungary you had that toilets where you could go in on the street. So you washed yourself there. And then from 6 in the morning till 8 in the morning I was taking the train back and forth, different trains that I shall be too obvious. And money I had so I could eat in any restaurant. And then it was Tatarium already in Budapest, so more than 10 people couldn't be more than 3 people couldn't be in one place at one time. So what we did every hour on the hour, by the theater, by the opera, by certain point we had meeting places where 3 people could be, and where I could meet them and give them papers or give them money or give them instructions.
Where did you get the money from?
Well, the money, it costed us $100 every person to go across the border. I had money, my own money, and we get also money from the organization. They had a fund specially for that purpose. Also, for people who could afford it, we sold the false paper. You see, for people who could not afford it, we gave it for nothing. And for our fellows in the organization, naturally, we gave it for nothing. But if a rich Jew wanted to have the papers, naturally, we asked money for it. Now, I don't remember if it was $100 a person. I think it was 100, the farmer wanted $100 a person. In this book is in it, but I forgot. I should have looked it up again. Pizzi knew because Pizzi was the one who really paid the farmer and took care of that part of it.
Do you know the farmer's name?
No. No. I had nothing to do with him. It was on the border. And the farmer knew Pizzi also, just not on his real name, but he was sure that Pizzi is a Christian who does it also for money like he does. And after the 2 weeks, when Efra and the other fellow also crossed the border, then I decided that it's high time for me to go too. And you see, I forgot to tell you that among the other things that I was doing, I also went to the parents and asked them to please let the children go, because most of the parents were very reluctant to let the children go. And we were trying to explain to them that it's no guarantee that they will cross the border and they will be alive. But if they go with them to the ghetto and to Auschwitz, it's definitely no guarantee that they will survive. So few people let the children go and others not. This particular girl, her parents said, okay, she can go. Her name was Kurzweil Ruth. She can come only if she goes when I am going. So I picked her up from her house, and I picked up my boyfriend, Vorshody, whom I previously brought the false papers, and we started out to the border. We didn't want to sit in the same wagon as I told you before, because we didn't want, if one will be caught, that the other shall be caught too. So Dov was sitting in another one, and we two were sitting in one coupe. Now that time it was a lot of air raids, and the trains were always darkened, naturally. And when the air raid came, they stopped, and we had all to go out from the train and hide, and then go back to the train. So when we get to Nagyvárad, we didn't find Dov. So we didn't know where we lost him or what happened to him. But I decided we have to go back to Budapest, because if they're catching him with the false papers, by him he's a boy, so they will find out very soon what he is, and being run away from the army will be shot. So I didn't want that to happen. So with Ruth we went back to Budapest. We went to that meeting place by the theater. We picked Dov up, but by that time not just Dov was there, but also 4 Polish fellows who belonged to our organization and who also knew the orders that when you want to go across the border, you're going to one of these meeting places.
Which theater was it?
Vígszínház. And Vígszínház vagy a Nemzeti Színház? I really don't know now. It could be that a Nemzeti, I don't know, one of the theaters. And you know, it was very hard on the street, because we were already that way more than 3 people, needless to say. So I told them to please, I gave them the money, and I had in my dress, everything was so into jewelry and money and everything, that when I get to Romania, that I shall be able to have something with me, you know. And I told the people to go different wagons in the train. But we couldn't get a ticket straight to Grossvardai. We had to go first to Cluj and then change to Grossvardai. Anyway, when the train was dark, naturally, because of the air raids, and the train always was full with detectives in civilian clothes. Also, not just the gendarmes who came up and the police who came up, who we could see that it's police, but you had also people who were like regular people, but they were detectives. So I had to go from wagon to tell the people whom to follow, and the whom to follow was me. And when I get back, I saw on the face that man that he's looking at me, and I knew I will be caught. So I had to go back again and tell them, please don't come after me, because I will be caught. Because what happened, these people were talking Yiddish among themselves. Now the man didn't see the faces because the train was dark, but he could see me who are moving among the people. So I knew he will caught me, and he will take me, and the rest can run away if I will be the last one getting off the train, because I give them time enough. So I told that to every one of them. And I told to Ruth to please don't come with me, because if you come with me, you're going to jail, I will be caught. It was hard to talk to her too much, but she said, no, I don't want to. I don't know the Polish people, I don't know Yiddish, I don't know Polish, I don't want to be with them. I said, Ruth, you know Dov, be with Dov. No, he's a boy, I don't want, stupid reason, I don't want to be with them.
Why?
She had her period, so she was bashful. She doesn't want to be with a boy. So I said, it's a very stupid reason to get killed for that. No, 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 I'm coming with you. Whatever happened to you, I come with you. So I couldn't argue there too much, you know, with the man standing 3 feet from me. So I said, Ruth, so naturally when the train stopped, I let everybody go. I wasn't in the hurry. And then when I wanted to go down, he says to me, Fräulein, don't move. You're coming for me to the police. So I looked at him, I said, why? What is the reason? My papers are okay. I want to see these papers at the police station. And the two he wanted to take the two Polish fellows next to me also, but they fell on their knees and kissed his hand and was begging him, and he let them go. And for a moment I said to myself, perhaps if I do the same thing, he let me do too, but some stupid reason in me said, no, I will not fall on my knee and kiss a hand and ask and beg for something. I don't know what kind of stupidity it was in me, but I didn't do it. So he took me en route to the police station, and he started to interrogate us. And naturally we were standing on it that we are not Jewish, that I am a girl who came to vacation to Nagyvárad, and I want to spend here my vacation. And what is my profession? According to the paper, I was sewing, right? So he looked at my clothes and he found all what was ever sewn into it, and it was ridiculous because no girl who was with that profession would have that kind of money and jewelry on him. So he said to us, what kind of an idiot you find we are, that we believe you, that you must be Jewish, and we said, no, we aren't. So he was trying to beat us and beat it out from us, and I said to Ruth, please hold until 12 midnight. After that we can tell anything, because by that time they crossed the border, but till 12 midnight we have to endure anything and everything. And because I didn't want these fellows to be cut. You see, in Budapest it was nobody else they could cut, because I could nobody to put in, but I didn't want the fellows who came with me to be cut. And so she said, by 12 o'clock I finally told him, all right, now you can stop beating us. I will tell you. He also said to me, you never lived on the place where what it says on your paper. So by 12 o'clock I said to him, you're right, we both are Jewish. I just didn't want to tell you because I wanted the rest of them to cross the border. Now I know they crossed it, so I can talk to you. So he looked at me, he was outraged. I said to him, also, I want to ask you a question. What do you think, who has false papers and who has originals? So he said, on Ruth's paper, which I wrote, is an original, and on my paper, which I took out like this from the office, and it was an original paper, it's false. So I started to laugh. I said to him, you know, if I would know that the Hungarian police is that stupid, I wouldn't have to work so hard, because this one I wrote and this one is original. The man, you should have said, he was always killing me. But somehow I had a chutzpah in me, really. In that moment I feel it doesn't count anymore. I did everything what I could as long as I was free. Now it doesn't matter because they will kill me anyway. So I was so sure that I will die. I just wanted to die as a human being with my dignity. And you know something, it worked. When they see that you have your own dignity, then he'll treat you with much more dignity. I've learned that even by the Germans. He looked at me and he said to me, you know, if you will be so fresh with me, I will give you for the Germans. I said to me, if you want to be a pig, you can do it. I said to him, look, I was always decent. I never did anything illegal. And now I was forging papers. I was putting people through the border. I did everything what is illegal. But it's not my fault. You made me do it. Because you, from no reason at all, just because I am Jewish, make me a nobody, something who has to do that to save his life. So I said, what do you want from me? So he looked at me. He was, I guess, a decent human being, more or less. And he said, okay, all right, I put you here in jail. So they closed us on in jail, and believe it or not, from the money what we gave him, he let us send in food every single day, which was very decent from him. And I was very stupid because I wanted to run away from the jail. Perhaps if I would have stayed there, I would have saved myself Auschwitz, because that time in Nagyvárad it weren't any Jews anymore. So when he put us into the jail, it was only gypsies and street girls there. No, gypsies also, not just street girls. The gypsies went to the lager too. So when they heard us to come in, they figured we are street girls too. So we had a language we never heard before. We were afraid to sit down. We were standing in a corner because we will get syphilis if we sit down. So when we didn't answer, they understood that we are not one of them, and they treated us beautifully. Because when the police wanted something from us, they offered their services, which was very kind of them. But what happened after a few days, they were all let out. We weren't. So I decided that I want to run away. I have a small hand, so I could put it through the lock and open the lock. I just forgot. And the door will make a tremendous noise when it opens, and I'm an end on the corridor, and I had to get to so naturally, as soon as the door opened, they heard the noise, and we started to walk out. They caught us. And they took the both of us, they put us in handcuffs, and the two girls, believe it or not, with 10 policemen, sent us up to Budapest. I asked them if they think that we will kill them or something, that we will need 10 policemen, the two of us, two girls in handcuffs, to get back to Budapest. They sent us back to the Tolonc house. It was a jail where you assembling people till you sort them out where they will go. And there they kept also ladies of the night, and I figured the same thing, if I hide among them, perhaps it will be a good way to hide, but they didn't like us. They told the police that we don't belong to them. So they took us back, and from there I was shipped up to Sárvár. Sárvár was a concentration camp, an internierungscamp called, in Hungary. And we were kept there with a lot of other people who were caught, like me, on the way to Romania or on a street or wherever, you know. And we were there a month.
What was the process of getting registered in Sárvár?
They just took our name, and it wasn't, they just took our name, and that's it. We were just Jews who were put in the barracks. We didn't work there. We didn't do anything, matter of fact. We get some food, which was terrible, but we could write home, and we could ask for packages. And
what was the sleeping arrangements and the?
In bunkers. It was, in bunks where we slept. It wasn't so terrible. It wasn't. You cannot compare it with a concentration camp in Germany. We didn't, or Poland. We didn't have to stand uphill. We weren't beaten. We just were closed in, and that's it. We could even get visitors. The people could come to visit us. Matter of fact, I wrote to my girlfriend Ági to please send me packages and what they did, and also false papers, because my false papers were taken away. Naturally, I didn't wrote it that. I wrote it in a language which we already talked before, that if I write that, and she knows that I need papers.
What was the language?
The language was the Hungarian language, but the words were different. We put it so that she understands what I meant, but the censor, who censored every letter which came in and out, shall not understand it.
Do you remember what it was that you wrote?
No. No, I really don't. I just know that, I just remember the answer where she wrote me that my girlfriend will come down to you, visit you next Sunday. She is off from work Sunday, she will come to visit you Sunday, which meant that she will bring me the papers Sunday. But I know what I wrote. I wrote her, please can you send your friend to visit me? Now, she was Jewish, so she couldn't visit me. So the friend who visited me had to be Christian and had to bring me something if I want that person whom I don't know to visit me. You understand? So it was a very simple way to do it, because if I write you, send me somebody who is, understand? So she wrote me back, my friend will come to visit you on Sunday. But the Sunday was too late for me, because the night before, the Germans transported us out from Sharvar. And that was already an illegal transport, because Horthy by that time, with his rest possibility to do something, put his foot down and didn't allow any more Jewish transport out from Hungary. So that was the end for Horthy too, because after that came the Szálasi kormány, which was the Szálasi regime, which was the Nazi regime in Hungary. But by that time I was already in Auschwitz, because...
Going back to Sharvad, you mentioned that they gave you some food. Can you describe that? What type of food did they give you there?
Don't remember. It was not very much edible, I imagine, but it was, I imagine, prison food. I don't know. I received from Aggie and from my aunt. She was sending me packages, and that's supplemented in a certain way. So we weren't starving. It wasn't any starvation there. I mean, it was not a good food, but it was food, and we get the packages and we, divided it among them. So it wasn't a place where you really starved or get killed or anything. It's no comparison whatsoever.
How did you spend your time?
Well, we were spending with each other. We were talking with each other. We were singing Hebrew songs. We were singing. We're trying to keep the morale up. We were trying to talk about the people who hopefully get through to Romania, and from Romania will get to Palestine, and they will build us the country. And we try to think of the future in that terms. And as long as we were there, we hope that perhaps if we don't get to Auschwitz, that we really will survive.
Who were the fellow inmates with you? Who else was there? You mentioned the ladies of the night, but besides them?
No, here you didn't have any ladies of the night anymore. Here in that camp are only Jewish people. Here were only people who were Jews. You see, ladies of the night, they were a few days in the jail, and then they were set free to go whatever they want to do. It was only in the regular jails. Here we were only Jews collected from the different jails, from the different places, and put together and kept there, like in a ghetto. You didn't get beaten or anything else in the ghetto itself either. So it was like a ghetto.
Was there any talk?
You could walk around from one block to the other. You see, you couldn't go out from the camp. But inside, among ourselves, we could talk to each other. We can walk each other. So it was one more girl with whom I get very friendly, but I don't remember her name either. She was not from our organization. She was from Shomer HaTzair. But she was also Zionist, so we befriended her too. So we were like the three of us together most of the time. Then you had a lot of elderly people there who were caught because they wanted to live with Christian people, and they were caught. So we were every age group. You had her families together who were trying to hide, and they were caught. So it was only Jewish people here, but not from the same, from different cities, from different age groups, from different family relations.
Who were the guards?
They were Hungarian Chanders.
Did you have any particular conversation with them or the local community?
No. The local community we had no contact with it altogether. We were in a certain place closed in with Stacheldraht, barbed wire. So we were closed in with barbed wire, so it wasn't a question that we can have any communication with the outside world. And with the police, we had nothing to do with him. You didn't, if you could avoid it, you didn't communicate with these people. It wasn't a question of socializing with them if you don't have to.
Was there any type of resistance or plans to escape?
My plan was to escape, but for that I needed papers, because I knew even if I get out from there, I can get only till train station. In the moment I'm on the train station, I need papers to get identification. If I don't have papers, it's no point. I will be brought back right away. That's why I had to write to my girlfriend to send the papers. So we wanted to escape, but without papers it was no question. So nobody could escape if couldn't get hand of papers.
And you arrived in Sharvad when, and when did you leave?
I don't remember the exact date. It must have been sometime in end of July, and most probably they took me out. It has to be or end of July or beginning of August, and I left Sharwar or end of around the beginning of September.
Where did you go from there?
To the wagons, and 5 days. And it took us 5 days to get to Auschwitz.
Describe what type of transportation.
The transportation, I don't even know if it was 5 days or how long it took. It was a terrible transportation, because they put you in these wagons. These were where they normally transfer animals. And here you had your belongings with you. So people were sitting on their belongings or standing, or whoever had any food with him from their packages had food. We didn't get anything to eat during the transport. You had one big thing where you could make pee-pee if you wanted to, so the wagons were closed. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
How did they get rid of the waste?
When the train stopped, they asked for that thing, and we gave that, and they poured it out, and they gave it back to us.
Who asked for it?
The SS.
What type of conversation was going on in the wagons?
In the wagons, we tried to explain to people that we are going to Auschwitz, and and if they have any food with them, that please divide and give to everybody something to eat, because they will be taken away for them. But it was the usual story. Nobody wanted to believe. Nobody wanted to give away anything, the slightest little thing. Everybody was holding on to his belongings like for dear life, and nobody wanted to believe anything.
We're going to change tapes now. This is tape 4. My name is Debbie Portnoy. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack.
Well, we arrived in Auschwitz, and naturally we saw the sign, Arbeitsmacht frei. We get off the train. Everybody had to leave the belongings on the train station. And the SS hurried us into the camp. Mengele was there, and the usual story, left and right. The young people went in the concentration camp, and the other people went to left, and they went to Gaz. 3 of us, we were young people. We went to the Zehllager. The Zehllager was a collecting lager, actually. Nobody worked there. There was a place where when you arrived, get there, they kept there a certain amount of people, and after you filled that number, then you were or gassed or sent to work or wherever you were needed. We arrived there. The first thing was we had to get undressed. They took off our hair from everywhere, from the head, from under the arm, from down everywhere. It was a terrible feeling, you know, when you have to march around men, around soldiers, completely naked, and it's such a dehumanizing process. It's very hard to explain.
What were the soldiers doing while you were marching?
They were, first of all, they were hurrying us from one place to the other, were screaming, schnell, 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 that we shall follow a certain procedure. And then they didn't do nothing. They were standing. If you really follow the procedure, if not, then they will get a clap of your head or the body or wherever they reached you. I mean, they weren't sentimental, not hitting you. And you were in a daze. I can't hardly explain it to you. You didn't know what happening to you because even so that you know that Auschwitz is not a place where you will survive, you didn't expect that much of inhumanity what you really get there. And you had to throw down on one place your shoes, and another place you had to throw down your handbags, and another place you had to throw down your blouse or your clothes. Or, you know, everything was very neatly organized in big assemblies, or how to call it. And you marched through from one place to the other, and then they really put you in a shower, and you took a shower, and they, with some fleet, with something, they sprayed you that you have no lice or something on you, and then they give you that uniform, this striped uniform, what you wear.
When they first marched you into the shower, what did
Yes.
you think?
Nothing. At that time we didn't think anything, because that was we saw that we are separated, and I knew already what that means. So I didn't think anything. I knew that I am going really to take a shower. And the soap what you had, it was written of it, Reine Judenfett. It wasn't written Reine Judenfett, you know, you knew what the initial mean. So you washed yourself actually with somebody's body.
What were the initials on the soap?
R, J, F, Reine Judenfett. It was a horrifying feeling, you know. And then I get into C-Lager, block 31st. That was the last block in the barrack. You know, these were long. It's long, not in the barrack. It's in the lager. You know, it was a long thing, and here was the barracks, at called blocks, and the 31st was the last one. And it was very little. It was the camp was overfilled. It was very little place. Now you had barracks where people slept on bunkers. In this one, we slept so that one put her leg apart, and the second one sit on it, and we were laying one above the other. It was terrible. I had not much room, so I was opposite the door of the zelt, which was open, and the Stacheldraht, the barber wire was opposite me with the reflector on it. So all night the reflector was shining into my face, and it was enough to make me crazy. So we were that time only the two of us. You see, the third one we didn't know where she went. When we didn't get numbers here, but they wrote down names, and I wanted Ruth to be with me, so I registered her not under her real name, which was Ruth Kurzweil, but I said she's my sister. So instead of, I was Maria Gara and she was Marta Gara, and that's how we were registered in Auschwitz. But I told her here that I can't stand in Auschwitz. I don't care if they go to gas, but I can't live here because it absolutely drives me crazy, and I just don't want to live in these circumstances. I did what I did. I saved as many lives as I could. I feel that I did my share. I feel I was come to this world to fulfill my fate, and I did it, and I just don't care. So every time Mengele came to look for people, most people were hiding in the blocks. I was always going, but they never took me because till they get to our block, they had already enough people. Luckily, because later I find out that all these groups went to the hospitals for, how you say it, for, they're trying to, not examination, but that work what they did to find out different sicknesses and whatever. So it was a terrible death to go through that. Finally, You see, the morning we had to stay up hours and hours. If somebody was missing, then everybody was beaten up. And in the afternoon we were staying up. You didn't work in the Zelager, but these apples were killing. The food was unbelievable. You get some kind of a soup in the morning, which was really, if you find one half potato in it, and it was a lot, it was just some kind of water. You get one slice of bread, and you get the same thing in the evening. So naturally you were hungry, you were cold, you were hot, you were everything. And it was just absolutely terrible. You had to stand almost motionless, because if you made a wrong move, then you were beaten up, and you were, it's very hard to explain. It was absolutely incredibly terrible. So I just feel that I just don't want to live that way. I just rather die. So with the less transport, they were looking for 3,000 people. So finally, when they get to our block, they also needed people. And I was marching, really trying to make myself as tall and as healthy and as good looking as I just could. So I still heard Mengele telling me, "All right, you're marching, wir einem Husarin, kommen Sie." And he took me out, and Ruth followed me. And then we went to Birkenau. And
before you went to Birkenau, can you describe if you ever met any famous or infamous personnel in the camp?
Yes, except Mengele. It was there a blonde girl who was a capo. She was the most awful, I don't remember her name. She was the most awful, most horrifying, most sadistic person you can think of. And she was beating you for no reason whatsoever. If you wanted, you could never go to the latrine by yourself. You have to be at least 5 people to be able to go out to the latrine. And if she felt like it, then she beat you up because you wanted to go, or because you wanted to go back, or whatever you did, it was no matter what it was. Or because you talked to somebody, or because you didn't talk, she found her reason why to beat you up. She was a terrible person.
Were you ever beaten?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I was beaten, and I was also, when I was beaten because I wanted to go to the bathroom, I asked where the latrine is, I forgot, and that was reason enough to beat me. And the people were screaming, run away, because otherwise she will beat you to death. And I couldn't understand, I didn't know anything wrong, why I have to run. It took me a long time till I get used to that. If somebody lifts her hand, or his hand, I have to run. But it became such second nature that after I get back to Budapest, when my aunt lifted her hand, I was in the second corner, and they couldn't understand why I'm running away. But you instinctively you try to get away from it, not to get beaten to death for no reason. But it wasn't any reason why, it's just you get away.
What were some of the conversations that you might have remembered in Auschwitz at night after you were back in the bunk?
Well, you see, we try to keep the morale up among ourselves as much as we could.
In what way?
That we were talking about it, that hopefully the rest of the people are alive, and Israel will be born. And not, I myself, I was sure that I will die. And the rest of the people always believed that we will be freed, the American will free us, the English will free us, something will happen. Everybody wanted to listen to the news, what will happen. And then they build up some big hopes, and when it didn't came through, then they collapsed. And I think my other reason that I survived, that I never built any hopes. I said, they brought me here to kill me, they didn't brought me here to save me. So most probably sooner or later they will succeed, but I have no hopes. Then what they were talking, it was food. And it made me crazy too, because you were hungry enough, and then listening to what they eat that time, and how they would do that, and how they would do the other thing, you know. But that was the conversation also. And then naturally we have people from Poland and from Czechoslovakia who hated us because they suffered much more than us. So they, what right we have to complain, or what right we have to say anything when they're doing that already 4 years or 3 years and 2 years, and we had it so good all this time, you know. So that was another thing which we heard, you know, they didn't like us at all. The Hungarians were hated very much.
Did you have any job in the camp?
No, no, not in Auschwitz.
Did you receive a number?
No.
How long did you stay in Auschwitz?
I think it was 2 weeks.
Tell me what happened then.
Then they took us really to the gas chamber. We were standing for this so-called, they said they will take us to take a bath, right? But we were standing there hours and hours and hours not moving. And I remember the girl, it was a Jewish girl, a Polish girl who was standing in front of me. She was an officer, not an officer, but she was not one of us who was supposed to go in, but one who had to take care of that we stay orderly and so far. I don't know what she was called, what was her title. So I told her anyway, please let us go in already, let's have it over with, because it's just terrible to stay here and wait. So she looked at me, said to me, you have time to go in there. You never know what happens in the last minute. And she was right, because the last minute they get an order from Stutthof that they need people. So they turned us around and took us really to take a shower and get that beautiful uniform and put us in open cars, and we traveled to Stutthof, which was another Vernichtungscamp, with the difference that in Stutthof also Russian soldiers were gassed, not just Jews and Gypsies.
How were you transported to Stutthof?
Again in the same kind of wagons, but they were open wagons. They were half wagons, not completely closed. They were half. So I remember that even so that I came to Auschwitz, I went to Stutthof, and I was sure that I will die. I enjoyed the scenery because it was September and it was everything in blooming. And we went from Auschwitz, which is south of Poland, to north of Poland, to the corridor up to Danzig. Stutthof is close to Danzig. And it's a beautiful, beautiful scenery, beautiful farmlands and beautiful flowers and orchards. And I remember wondering and enjoying how beautiful all this is, trying to forget and cut out what was before and what will be after. All the time I somehow luckily was able to see myself quasi outside of myself. I don't know, you know that play, my little town from Taunton. I saw that in Hungarian in Budapest before I went to the lager. And there you have that scene when the 16-year-old came back to life and can't understand why it's so important if she brushes her teeth. And somehow the whole thing was before me, and I don't know how they're playing the play here, because I never saw it here, I never saw it in English, I just saw it in Budapest in the theater. And there all the dead were sitting on the chairs, and she is going back on her 16th birthday. And somehow, all the time in the concentration camp, I feel that I am dead, I'm sitting on this chair, and I set myself back, and I am looking myself from the outside. And I am trying to say, how come that this was so important and this was so, isn't that ridiculous? So that's how I was feeling there also. I was looking at that and I said, how beautiful it is. And then we get to Stutthof, and outside where the German soldiers, the SS soldiers lived, it was a beautiful garden with flowers. It was absolutely beautiful. And then you walked through the gate, and it was exactly you get from heaven to hell. The contrast was so big that it's just, I am not talented enough to describe you. From that beautiful flower pots and the barren, from that everything so light and beautiful and everything dark, and this cells and these awful people beating you for everything, for nothing, for no reason. It was terrible. You went from from Auschwitz to Stutthof, it was the same treatment, the same standing on Appell, the same beating up, the same latrines, except that I didn't have to sleep like that. I had the bunkers to sleep. Otherwise, nothing changed. Everything was the same. It was just terrible. The only good thing that it was for us a transit camp. They took us there from Auschwitz before they sent us to Waldenlager, which was up in the north on the front, and where we had to dig the trenches for the soldiers and the trenches for the tanks.
I just want to go back a little. In Stutthof, did you have any type of work to do?
No, we didn't work
Were
there.
you given a number?
No.
And the food situation was the same as?
Exactly the same. There's no difference. They were made in the same fashion, all of them.
Did you have any contact with any gypsies in this
No,
camp? Or
no.
were you aware of any medical experimentation that was going
No,
on in this camp?
No. You see, the gypsies were also in Auschwitz, also here. They were kept separately.
Did you have any contact with the local population?
The local population looked at us when we marched somewhere, but we have no contact whatsoever. Even if they wanted to give us water or wanted to be helped, they were beaten up. The SS didn't allow the local population, if they would want to help you. But the most of the time, they didn't wanted to help us anyway.
So there was no conversation at all that ever might have?
No whatsoever.
Okay. And from there, you went
to Waldlager. Waldlager was the Arbeitscamp. That was the original reason why we were saved, because they needed somebody to make these ditches for the soldiers and for the tanks to fall into. We worked actually not with the Wehrmacht. The SS was our soldiers, and they had Christian people from Poland who were also on slave labor, but who were our Aufsehers, our supervisors. We worked in accord. They told us how deep, how wide, and how bright the thing had to be, and we worked in accord. You had so many people get so much work, and when you finished, they checked if it was done exactly according to the measurement. If it was all right, you could march back to the camp where you slept. If not, then you were thrown back into the ditch to correct it, and then you could go back.
Did you have a specific role or function?
Yes, here I did, because when we arrived, we were divided in blocks of 50. So everybody, and our block was 50 people, mostly from Hungarian people. But these Hungarian people were mostly from Podkarpatska Rusland. That was people who very hardly speak Hungarian at all. They mainly speak Yiddish. Or you see, that part of Hungary before the First World War belonged to Hungary. After the First World War, it became Czechoslovakia because they were divided by Trianon. Trianon divided it, took it away from Hungary. Then Hitler gave back a part of it to Hungary. So these people these unfortunate people who were given back to Hungary mainly fall into these people who were in my block. They were from Munkács, from Podkarpats. We called it the territory Podkarpatska Rusland. They talk mainly Yiddish among themselves. That they didn't speak a decent German. They could only speak Yiddish. So they also didn't speak very well Slovak or Czech because they were half Hungarian. They speak every language, but none of them really good. So when every block should had a Blockälteste. So when the Germans came to look for somebody who shall be responsible, that the people have to stand up early in the morning, they had to be marched out to the work, but the SS was there, but we were responsible for so many people from the block get up in the morning, say the appel, get out. We was asked how many people you have out and gave out the work, and then bring back the people and give out the little bread or food, whatever we had. So you needed somebody which called the Blockeltester who did all this. Now they needed somebody naturally who do speak German, with whom they can talk. So Ruth suggested me, because I do speak German. So I became the Blockeltester, even so that I was not certainly the oldest among them, but that was my title. I was the responsible person for them. I was the Blockeltester.
In what way did she suggest you? How did that happen?
When the German officer came in and said, "Who speaks here German? Who will be able to speak?" Then the others said, "We're speaking Yiddish," so it wasn't good. So Ruth said that I can speak German, so he picked me because I can speak German. So I became the Blockeltester of the group. And as I said to you, what my position was, I did not have to work physically, because what I was supposed to do, I was supposed to get them out in the morning for appel. I must make sure that they are standing the right way and as they're supposed to, that they march out to work.
How did you enforce that?
I really didn't have to enforce, because the people knew that I do everything for them what I possibly can, and they liked me. Because what I did, I took out the block. When we get to the forest, I hid a few from them. You see, when I took them out, I had to have the full number. I took them out. When I get there, I hid a few of them in the forest. Because the SS, every block had one SS. So when they get out to the forest, they knew they had nowhere to run. Where are you running in the forest? I mean, it was no need to numbers, no need to nothing. Where the hell can you go by the front line? By the east? I mean, it was no point. They knew they can't run away. So they sat they made themselves fire. They sat there and they talked, and they were busy with themselves. And the Polish people, the Polish man came and asked how many people I have. He didn't know how many I had there. So I at least told him 5 or 6 people less than I effectively had, which meant that I get work for 6 people or 5 people less. I took my people out from the forest and put them in. So naturally, everybody had less to work. And I went to help as much as I could, and I went to see that they're doing it really correctly, that if it's somewhere something missing, because I knew it's much worse if they throw us back. So I was very strict in that they do the work properly. So generally what happened, we were always the first block who finished, because we were less people doing the work. So our SS didn't beat me so much either, because they could get back easier to the block, you know. So everybody was happy with the arrangement, because everybody get back to the block faster. The only person who put his neck on the board was me, because if they will caught me that I am doing that, I would get shot. But I didn't care, because I was so sure that I will die that it didn't make me any difference. You see, the food what we get was terrible. We get a cup of so-called coffee in the morning, which was brown water. We get a slice of bread. And then when we get back in the evening, we get some kind of a soup with another slice of bread. Sometimes we get a spoonful of marmalade or 2 spoonfuls of sugar or something, when they forget that after all we need something. Now we walked through fields, but you were not supposed to steal. So if they caught you that you steal a tomato or you steal a cabbage or something like that, the punishment was dying, was shot. And I had a girl in my block, and she stole a cabbage. Also, we were sometimes stealing potatoes, you see, because in the block, it was cold by that time up there, so we had an oven in the middle which we could cook water on it, because we had to wash ourselves. So we warmed water and we washed ourselves that way. And also in that water we could cook potato. What I did, I was also going around and collecting mushrooms. I didn't know which one. I hope that I am collecting the right one. And we get a tiny little bit of margarine every day, so I made myself with the margarine and with the mushrooms a food. And I once even offered to the SS, but he wouldn't take it because he figured I want to poison him. I ate it, and luckily I survived with it. It could have been a poisonous mushroom either, but I figured, I tried to figure from my knowledge from botanic, from previously what I learned in school, which one is perhaps the good one and which one is the bad one, and you know. But this girl steal himself a cabbage, and the SS caught her and wanted to beat her to death. And I will never forget, I went to the SS and I hold his hand. And I said, what are you doing? Don't you ashamed of yourself? He was a Lithuanian SS, and I could very hardly talk to him because his mother tongue was actually Lithuanian or Russian, but he still understood because I was holding his hand. He was so shocked that I dared to do that he went back and he forgot to hit me. And she ran away, of course, in the meantime. And my whole block was standing like that because they were sure he will kill me. But you see, the way as I put down my foot and I said, I don't let her beat. So what are you doing? You know something? I had respect from them. That was worked out. And then what they tried to do, they took me and they put me in a piece of material, and they were trying to roll me up and down the hill.
Who?
The SS. They figured I will scream. It was just to play. And I told my block not to take one mook, just work, and let them do it with me. They will get tired of it. If you have no reaction from there, if they have no reaction from me, it's not more interesting. And they stopped. Then they decided, okay, if that doesn't work, they were holding me over the fire, over there. And I said the same thing to the people. Keep quiet. Work, nothing happens. I keep quiet, nothing happens. And they put me down. It doesn't help. So it's not fun. If I am not screaming, it's not fun.
We're going to change the tapes now. This is tape 5. My name is Debbie Portnoy. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack. In what other ways did they mistreat you?
Well, you see, after a while, I get one tooth which were inflamed. And I couldn't open my mouth. I had a fever and my face swollen, and I couldn't open my mouth at all, and I couldn't eat at all. And even that little bread and little soup I can hardly put in my mouth. And I couldn't go out to work. My blocks tried to feed me because they knew when I don't eat that I will die, but I just couldn't swallow. I couldn't go out to work. Now, we had to stay appel every morning and every evening, but except the appel, but everybody had to stay. Every evening, the Blockältestes had to stay appel and give an account to the Lagerführer, to the German SS who was responsible for the whole lager, what happening. And I didn't go out to work. So after 3 days, he said, it's no way. Or I go out to work, or he sends me back to Auschwitz, to gas chamber, or shoot me or something, because he doesn't need a Blockältester who is sick. And I explained to him, it's not that I don't want to work or I don't want my responsibility. I'm simply unable to because of my face. So he said, okay, the dentist will be here for the soldiers, and he will take care of it. So they took me to the dentist, 2 soldiers. They hold me down without anesthesia, without anything. They pulled my tooth. It was real fun, I can tell you. Since then I am so afraid of the dentist like hell. But it helped because getting rid of that tooth, the whole skin could come out, and the whole thing went down. And I was able to go out to work, which was also good for my block because they were crying already. They get a Blockältester instead of me to replace me on that 3 days when I didn't go out. That's how the Oberscharführer knew that I'm not going out, because it was a Jewish Lagerältester also. And she was a girl from Czech or from Poland, I don't know. So she sent one from her people, and they had to work, you know, she didn't do what I do, she didn't hide people, so they had to work as many as, so they had to work much harder. And they get back much later, and they were beaten up by the SS because they weren't used to get back that late with the block. So they were very unhappy, and they were crying and begging me to come back, so they were very happy when I finally get back to work and could do the same thing again what I did before. But what happened, Ruth, the girl who came originally with me, remember, whose mother wanted her to be with me, she had asthma, which I didn't know, and she couldn't march from the block to the workplace. So from the very beginning on, I tried to hide her that she has nothing to work, and she has not to march, and she has not to do anything. And then later, when they established a first aid station, after the appel in the block, I hide her so that she doesn't have to go out with us. But once, and it was getting colder and colder, you know, and we get shoes, the same kind of shoes what the Holland people have from wood. When you put paper on it and you put it that way on your foot, it kept it warm. It was very hard to walk on it, and you had to walk in snow, which was very hard, but at least it kept your foot warm. So I gave a pair of shoes like that to Ruth too, but she didn't want her to wear it. She had her old shoe from home, which was from leather. And I said to her, Ruth, it's no good because your leg will be frozen. But she was afraid to walk in these shoes that she will fall down, and if you didn't march fast enough and you fell down, you get beaten. So she was afraid of that. And she had anyway hardship to walk out and walk back because of the asthma. So she didn't want it to, and we had to march, and this time I couldn't hide her. I had to take her out because I knew when the SS will check in the first aid station to see if anybody hiding there. So I knew it in advance, being blockade test, I knew in advance when they will have it. So I had to take her out with me because I didn't want her to be cut, he would have been shot. So she had to march with us, and she had this shoe on, and her feet get frozen. So from that time on, I really couldn't take her out because during the day she had to be in the first aid station because her foot was terrible. And the night she came back to me and slept in our block, but during the day she was in the first aid station because of her foot and her general physical condition, which wasn't. You see, if I would have known that she is not a healthy person, I wouldn't even suggest that she came with us to Romania originally. But I didn't know that. And so what happened, nobody had shoes anymore, you know, and I went to the lager, to the Germans, and I said to them, we need shoes because people have with this whole thing you cannot walk because we're falling down. You can't walk with them in the snow, it's impossible. We need some kind of shoes. So I needed shoes for 46 people at least, and I get, I think, 32. So try to divide 32 between 46 evenly. It's impossible. So I gave it to as many people as I could, and one of the girls who didn't get it was a very big, tall, heavy girl. She beat me up because she got crazy in the moment because she didn't get a pair of shoes. But this was already in the beginning of January, you know, so we went through hell by that time. A lot of us died already. They threw the dead out of the corner and they waited till it's a certain amount and then they buried them. They didn't even bother to bury single persons, of course. So it was, everybody was by that time in a state that half dead and half mentally sick. So she beat me up and I didn't do anything. So on the same evening, we had again the appeal to, and the Lager, the Oberscharführer, who otherwise respected me because he knew that I tried to do order and I was the only person who was Sie and not Du. and he called me decliner. And I remember once I wanted to get something to eat, and the soldiers became cheese, and they became it in big boxes. So I figured if I go to help to take the cheese, perhaps I can get a piece. So one of the soldiers put so much cheese on me that you could hardly see me. So he came and he was screaming of the soldier, "How can you put so much on that small person? Don't you see that she can't carry so much?" So he was very nice, but then he got very angry with me because when that evening, when he asked what happened, everybody has to say something, what happened. And he asked me, "Do you have something to," and I said, "I have nothing to say." So he asked me, "Don't you have something to report to me?" And I said, "No, I don't know from nothing. But I heard that you were beaten up." I said, "Oh, yes, I was beaten up, but I mean, it wasn't the person's fault. I had less shoes that I needed, and I couldn't give her a pair of shoes, and she really needs also a pair of shoes. So in a moment of anger, she beat me. Why didn't you beat her back?" I said, she's twice my size. I said, no way I could beat her back, so it was no point for me to do anything. "But you here representing Germany, you can't be beaten." I said, "Whatever I representing, I couldn't beat her because I simply have no power. She is much stronger, much bigger, much everything." Next time he had the peitsche, in his hand. He gives me his peitsche. "Here, I give you mine. And next time when something like that happens, then you will beat her." And I said, "No, Herr Oberscharführer, I will never beat a Jew on German orders." Well, that did it. That ended my career. From that moment on, I wasn't Blockeltester anymore. He said, "Out." And she put to the block one of the Czech girls. My block was crying. My block was sent to him petitions, was everything under the sun, because they knew what will happen. Not just, naturally I had to get back to work, and she was the one who was responsible. But you see, they knew that they will have to work now much harder because everybody will be there. Nothing happened. The Oberscharführer naturally never would give me back my position.
What was his name?
I don't know. I never even know. He never introduced himself. He was a very, very tall fellow. And what was funny, he picked one of the girls as her girlfriend, one of the Jewish girls, needless to say. We never saw the girl. She was a princess. She was with him. We never saw her. We never heard from her. We never do nothing. We just know that she's existing.
How did you know?
Because that's what the grapevine said. So I suppose that was the truth. You see? It was another funny thing which I forgot to tell you in the very beginning. We get numbers, we get certain amount of people, and if somebody died, the bread what we get for that person we were supposed to give back. Nobody gave back but me, in the first time. And the Czech Polish girls who were sitting in the office, when they saw that I gave back the bread, they figured that I'm an agent provocateur, because they can't believe that somebody in a lager will give back bread. When in their block somebody died, they took the bread and ate it themselves. That somebody so stupid, they didn't know Hungarian mentality, how idiots we are. They didn't know that if I get something, if the person is dead, I give back the bread. I mean, how they come in the picture to take somebody else's bread? So they couldn't forget that. They just couldn't, and they didn't trust me. That's why they also ran to the Oberscharführer to say that I was beaten up. Otherwise he would not have known. But they hated me because they constantly were afraid that my block comes back first, the SS doesn't beat me, doesn't beat my block, I send back the bread. Something is not kosher here. They couldn't figure out what I am doing. They never talked to me because they hated me, and I never talked to them. We had no contact with each other at all. I couldn't understand why they hate me so much, but I never had the chance to figure out and find out. I find out after I was freed, and I talked to them. I asked them, why on earth you hated me so much? And they looked at me, how could be so stupid to send back the bread? I said, because I didn't know better. You see, they were for years and years, they had the experience. I didn't have that experience. I was straight. And the only thing which was important for me to not to lose my humanity. I don't care if I die, but I want to die like a human being, not like a pig. I wouldn't steal somebody's bread. I wouldn't beat somebody to save my life. I don't care to kill me, but I don't want to do things like that. And because of that, somehow I get respect from the Germans and from my own bloc. You know, it's funny, but that's what's happening.
How long were you in this camp?
Till the end of January. Then the Russian Voroshilov broke through the front, and 5 days we were running with the Germans. But unfortunately, what happened that when I lost Ruth, you see, she couldn't run with us. We get the morning the orders that everybody has to go and run. Whoever cannot walk, whoever is in the Red Cross station, stay there. And Ruth in that time was in a very, very bad state, so far bad that she was even in the night in the Red Cross station and not in the block. And I went to her in the morning and I said to her, Ruth, we're leaving tomorrow. I mean, it was the same morning. We're leaving this morning. We have to march with the Germans. And I said, I don't see how on earth I can take you. How can you march? And I see her face as she said to me, I know if you leave me here, I will die. And I will never forget the face. And I never forget myself and never excuse myself that I left her there, but it was no way for me to take her. I knew if I take her, they will shoot her before my eyes because she will not be able to march. And I just couldn't see that. And I knew if I stay there with her, I won't be able to help her. The only thing will be that I will get shot too. So it doesn't make much sense. Perhaps it should have been, I don't know. But anyway, I left her. And I don't know what the Germans did with them, if they just left them there and they froze or died or they shot them. I don't know. But we marched then 5 days with the Germans without food, but we could steal onions on the fields, that's what we ate. The snow was our water. We started out early in the morning and we had after certain times 5 minutes rest, and I marched till early in the evening because it get dark very early, so as soon as it get dark they closed us in somewhere. And whoever couldn't march get shot on the way and left there. And after the third day I was already in the States that I didn't care anymore, let them shoot me because I had no more energy to walk. And I was walking slowly, and another girl walked also slowly. And she gave me, the same as an SS gave me that hand of that girl to my hand and said, march together. And we walked together, and then came that intermission when we could sit down for a few minutes, and we sit down, and she had some bread, and I forced her to eat her bread because I knew how weak she is. And I said to her, you have to eat your bread, it's no way to save it because it's so little that you better eat it right then and there, and she did. And then the 5 minutes ended and we marched further, and she stand up, and the same soldier who gave it to me to hold her and march with her took her from me and threw her down and shot her before my eyes. And I was standing there like a stone because I didn't know what happened. And another soldier who took my arm and threw me into the crowd and instinctively and started to run. And that saved my life because he didn't shoot into the crowd naturally. Asked me why the other one saved me, why this one shot this one. I really don't know. It was everything just a matter of chance. And that day, that evening, the Germans closed us in a farm, and the owner of that farm and the people who worked in that farm, everybody ran away, so just the animals were there. And the cows weren't milked, and they were screaming because their were heavy and they just hurted them. And I lay down in the place where the cow was eating. I don't know how you say that in English. And he had it was a she, had a very rough tongue and it was licking me and it was terrible. So I decided that's no business, and I get up, and I was also very hungry. So I tried to milk her, and so I don't know very well how to milk, but she was so happy that she didn't kick me, and she gave me a big glass of milk, which I drink, not ask. The result, don't ask. I was sick from that months and months and months. And then I decided I have to hide, and I don't want to go back to that same place because I didn't like her licking me. So I decided to hide in the chicken coop. But the chicken didn't like me. They weren't very delighted being, I didn't look like to them a chicken, so they made a terrible noise. And the SS, before he left us, called up the German police to let them know that we are there. We were close to Bromberg. And the police came out and collected us all, not the Czechs and not the Polish, because they run away, knowing where they are and knowing the language. But all the stupid Hungarians who didn't know how to speak, we were all collected. And
how many were you?
We were approximately 300.
Out of how many?
3,000. And we were all closed into the jail in Bromberg. Now we had to march from that farm till Bromberg, and I was crawling. I was the last one. If the SS, I would be shot, but it was the German police, so they didn't shoot us. The people of Bromberg saw us coming because they saw us on the street, and it wasn't hard to figure out because on my coat, on my back, was a big red Magen David painted, so they could find out if they wouldn't know otherwise what we are. But when I get to the jail, all the cells were already taken, so they just threw me into the corridor and shut the door on me, and that was the end of story. And I decided that I think you had enough, and the next morning I let the SS shot me because I can't go any further. I have no more physical energy to it, and Ruth is not more here, and I just didn't want it to, and I undressed and lay down and fall asleep. During the night, the Russian took the city with cannon, with everything. I slept through the whole thing. I heard not a thing. When I wake up, the walls were still moving from the cannons and from all this. And what was funny to me is that the light came into a certain little window, and I saw that it must be something funny because with the Germans we had to start out early because they had to close us in early also. And it seemed to me that it must be noontime already of the way how the sunlight came in. So I feel that something funny going on. The building is that noise, that atmosphere. I just feel that something happened. I didn't know what. All of a sudden, I heard the noise on the door. And you know, you are funny. You want to die. You don't care for anything. But when you heard the noise, even so that I was stuck naked, I forgot it. I ran to the door to see if perhaps I can get some kind of food. And all of a sudden, a figure stands before me, and I get used to looking from the shoe up, not the other way around. And I go slowly up, and I see a funny uniform and a funny face and a hat with on the hat that's emblem of the Russian, you know, and a funny face. And in my mind, my book from the school opens from the different nationalities in Russia, and under the face Cossack. In the book, I am reading it in my mind. And I look up to him and I says to him, Cossack? And he makes me feel like that because he was also surprised. 300 half-naked women, you know, he figured to free prisoners, political prisoners. Instead, he finds 300 half-naked or completely naked women. He looked at me, he couldn't, you know, we both looked at each other, we don't believe our own eyes. And he was eating something, which was some bread with some ham in it, and he gives it to me. And I take it and I bite in it, and it's food and it's delicious, and I start screaming to the girl that the Russians are here, we have food. They didn't dare to move. They were afraid that it's a trick, and if they move, they believe they will get killed. So they didn't move, and I didn't move. And that soldier wanted to show them that we are free. He was a very tall man, and he was standing with his leg apart. He took me and he threw me out, the way I was. Now, thank you very much. I'm naked, and the snow is that high, and it's end of January. By that time, the girls started to move and to see what's going on. So I crawled back between his legs to get my clothes, because after all, you know, I still don't want to be naked in January, if not any other reason. But that was it. He opened the jail. Goodbye, go wherever you want. No money, no knowledge of language, no possibility to travel, because it was, remember, end of January, the war was going on. The Cossack group which freed us was running direction Berlin, because the Russians wanted to get there first before the Western, because they wanted a part of Berlin and a part of Europe. So naturally they had other problems than worry for us. Furthermore, they themselves had nothing to eat. So it wasn't like when the American came and freeing you and putting you in a hospital. They freed you and do whatever you want, that's it. So what we did, we lived 1 week or 2 weeks, I don't remember, in the jail, because that was the only place we could. I went out in the morning, tried to get some food. I went around and I saw a butcher who were giving out meat. But meat, so that he cut up an ox in 4 quarters, and he gave a whole 4th quarter to somebody. And it was a lot of Polish men there standing and asking, and I saw that I will get nothing. And I generally very seldom cry. I just cry when I am very angry and I can't help myself. So I started to cry and scream, "Panie, panie, panie," and with my leg like that I went, like a hysterical something. And one of the men took me, put me on his shoulder, and said to the butcher to give me also a piece of meat. So he gave me also 1 leg of a cow with the rest of it, you know, the 1/4. I couldn't even lift it, naturally. So you can imagine that picture. I had a shoe on me, which I still in that prison, which was twice. I have a 34.5 foot. It was a shoe like this. I still in that a pair of pants for a man prisoner. I had my old coat, which was the big Magen David on it on the back. I still a hat for me, and I was pulling that ox behind me. And that's how I was marching, because lift I couldn't. I was in the snow. I was pulling it back to the jail, because I knew I can give from the meat. For the meat, I can get something else. You know, we will be able to eat something. It's a lot of meat. It's a lot of food. The Cossacks were on horses, and they had a lot of fun jumping over my head, because I looked funny. So they were laughing and jumping over me. I get used to. You get used to everything. Because I knew here too, don't scream, don't do anything. Just take it like it's the most normal way of things to go like this, and horses jumping over your head. So that way I get back to the prison, and everybody was very happy. Needless to say that we eat the meat raw, because it was nowhere to cook or do anything. And then somebody else was stealing bread, and somebody else was stealing something else. But the end was that the Polish people get sick and tired of us and of our stealing. And that was the only way we could exist. So we heard the rumors that they want to get us together, put in a house, and burn us. So we decided that it's not exactly the way what we would like to die. So 10 of us from my block, four sisters, me, another one, so we were all together 10. We decided that we will leave the jail, and we try to go somewhere. And we have to go where the Russians are going, because if we go where the Polish are, we get killed. The Polish won't let us live. So we have to march with the army, even so that the army marching to the front and the army marching to the soldiers, the German soldiers, so we can We can get killed in the war, we can get killed from the German, we can get killed from the Russian, we can get killed, everybody, but we have no choice.
How did you protect yourself from the Russian soldiers?
I will tell you. So we went, the first thing I did, still in Bromberg, I went to the Nachalnik, to the main officer from the Russian army, and I wanted to go into the Russian army, figuring that the best way, then I will get some food. So he was asking me with a dolmetscher, with an interpreter, where was I before? I said, I wasn't, why didn't I came before to go into the army? So I said to him, I couldn't, because I was in the lager. I was just freed by his soldier. Thank you very much, and now I would like to join. So he looks at me, too small. We can finish without you the war. We don't need you. Thank you very much. I said, okay, then at least please tell the soldiers to leave us alone. He looked at me and said to me, why? That's the minimum what you girls can do for our soldiers. So I said to myself, here I am not getting too far, thank you. So we better try to do something ourselves. Well, me they don't like, I am small. Thank God. So, but one picked me, that has come later. First we started out, 10 of us, on the front line. I will never forget, it was I don't know how kilometer wide front. Here was a dead horse, dead soldiers, and in the middle stand a living Russian soldier with one big glass of beer.
I'm going to change tapes. This is tape 6. My name is Debbie Portnoy. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack.
So we get to that. Can you imagine that picture? It's very early in the morning. We are very hungry. We are cold. We don't know where we are going. We just know we have to go the direction how the Russian soldiers are going if we don't want to get killed by the Polish. And here is standing that very nice Russian soldier who wants us to drink beer. He couldn't understand how comes that we didn't dare to tell him we don't want beer, thank you. With very big effort, the 10 of us drink one big thing of beer, and he couldn't understand how comes that 10 girls can finish or hardly can finish one thing of beer, but then he saws it doesn't work, so let us go. And then we saw a military truck comes, and it stopped, and it was luckily Jewish Russian soldiers. And I do speak a little bit Yiddish, so I explained to him what happened. And he said, you people are crazy, you will never cross the front line. Or you get killed from the war, or you get killed from the Russian, or you can't give, it's no ways. You see, what they did all the time anyway, till we get there, the Russians were very nice. When they were shooting, they took us, they threw us into some kind of a ditch, and when that went over, they pulled us out from the ditch that we can go further. But how far can you go that way? That they're throwing you in the ditch, pulling you out from the ditch, and they are nice enough to do that for you instead of shooting you and the heck with you. And so she said, it won't work. You can't continue that way. So we said, all right, we would like to continue somehow, but we don't know how. So he was nice enough to, all 10 of us, to put into his truck and took us to the place where his camp was. And we stayed there, and he was taking care of us. He didn't let the Russian soldiers come to us, and he didn't let us any harm, and he gave us food too. But then he came one day and he said, you people have to leave because I have to move. I am transferred, so I cannot take care of you, and if you stay here, forget it. So naturally, we moved. So we moved further, we walked. We never knew in the morning where we will sleep in the night. We never knew where we can find something to eat. But he was suggesting us to steal whatever, if we find empty German houses, to steal whatever we can and take it with us and sell it. Now, I am I am an absolute anti-talent in stealing, and I don't like to steal. I did steal food, but that was all. It was German houses which were, you had their sewing machines, you had, how can I carry? I couldn't even carry it, and it didn't even occur to me to take it, truthfully. I took the food, I ate the food. If it was enough to take it with me, then took it with me, you know. But I didn't steal anything which you could sell. And none of us did. So we went that way from one town to the other. From the 10 we became less and less because it was cold and it was miserable.
What happened to them?
Died. And remember, when you are after a year of lager and you are not in the best of physical conditions, and it's winter. We marched in the middle. We were freed of end of January. In that part of the world is very cold. The snow is laying that much. We didn't know the way. Sometimes we went in circles because we couldn't find our way out. So finally we get to a station, to a train station, and we went into a train, and it took us 4 days in an open train to get to Warsaw. We get to Warsaw, and it was nothing there. The houses from the outside looked beautiful, but when we went close, it was everything burned out. It was just the stone was standing, just the facade, nothing but inside. We walked around the whole day. We find nothing. We find one living horse and one person, and that one person told us that we have to cross the Vistula to Warsaw, Prague, and there is a Jewish committee. They will help us. Till then, we slept in empty houses, you know, wherever we could find an empty house which was somebody ran away from, we tried to stand there, or in a station or somewhere where was a little bit of, 2 months we couldn't get undressed, 2 months we couldn't wash ourselves. It was, don't ask in what condition we were. We get to Warsaw, we finally find that place, and we knock on the door, and the people telling us it's our office, it's no office hours anymore, we shall come back next morning. So I get very angry. I said, how on earth they think that the Christians will let us in when the Jewish don't let us in, and how he thinks I will come back in the morning. I want to come in right now. So he let us in. We slept on the floor. What was made me mad, they were eating before us. They wouldn't give us a piece of bread or anything because that's theirs, and our portion will come next morning. So next morning, because it will come late, I went down to the marketplace and steal a bread and an apple, and they caught me and they beat me almost to death for the apple and for the bread. So we went back, and by that time the portion arrived. So we get the portion, and I told my people, you know what? They were nasty to us. They didn't want to give us yesterday nothing. Now we will cheat them too. We can cheat also if we have to. We go out, we will change clothes. Everybody will clothe himself with somebody else's clothes, and we will go back and we will ask for a second portion. Because we have to leave Warsaw. Here we're dying. It's nobody helps us, and on the market we will be killed. That's what we will do. And that's what we did. We went back, and they looked at us funnily. I said, we need another portion. We are other people. I don't know whom you're talking about who was here before. So we get a second portion, and that's how we went further to Lublin. We get to Lublin. In the meantime, we lost a few people because we get stuck in the snow and we couldn't get out of it. And so by the time we get to Lublin, we were 5, the 4 sisters and me. And there we find Jewish men who came back from Poland, and we wanted to work for them. We wanted to clean their house. We wanted to do something. No, they wanted to marry us. They will feed us, but only if we get married to them. We said, we don't want to get married. We want to get home. We have to get married, otherwise they don't feed us. So we had to leave Lublin too. Then, I forgot to tell you, we slept somewhere, and a Russian soldier comes in and picks me out and takes me to a family and says to the family to feed me. And before he was looking, and after I ate he was looking. I didn't put up any weight, so I wasn't any good, so he threw me out, and I get back to the girls. They were so happy because they figured I get killed already. So that's how it went. No good. Too small, no need for it. And I was very happy with it. And then I find one Russian soldier who decided that even so that I'm small, he wants to feed me, but only if I am marrying him and going with him to his mother to Russia. So I said, no, thank you. I don't want to go to his mother to Russia. That's all what I need to go to Russia. I knew I would never get out from there. But he was decent. He gave me one conserve, even so that he didn't touch me and I didn't marry him. But our Jewish fellows weren't so far. They didn't give us nothing. No marriage, no food. That's it. So that's how we went 2 months, okay?
Did you ever find out what happened to your father?
He died in the ghetto. I find out when I get back home, yes.
Tell me about that.
When I get home back to Budapest, I find out that my father died. He in the ghetto, and he was in a grave with other people. So I exhumated him to a separate grave. He's now buried in a grave in Budapest.
Who told you where he was?
I went to the Hevra Kadisha, and I got from the letter on the Hevra Kadisha with the date when my father died in the ghetto, and I exhumated then and I buried. I have all the documents.
Did you ever try to get to Palestine?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
When I get back to Budapest, naturally I get in contact with the Hanua Hatzioni, and they wanted me to do Aliyah Beit. Aliyah Beit means to take people and send illegally to Italy, from where they can board the ship and go into illegally to Israel or Palestine that time. Now, my physical condition wasn't the best. I was doing that a certain amount of time. I was traveling between Budapest and Bucharest and went to Arad and Temesvár and Cluj. But everywhere I got sick. And I was more sick than healthy. In the meantime, I also find my boyfriend. He came back from Bucharest looking for me and for his parents. His parents also died in the ghetto. And before he went back to Bucharest, he went up to my aunt looking for me, and they told her at times that I was in Auschwitz. They don't know from me. When I got back to Budapest and lived by my aunt, she said to me that he was back looking for me, and his relatives lived opposite the street, so we find out from them that he's still here, and he came back to see me. He brought me the clothes from his dead mother because I had nothing. And we get married in Budapest, in the Dohány Temple, which is the main synagogue in Budapest. And we did then together that work that we were traveling and doing Aliyah Beit between Budapest and Bucharest. And by the way, I get back in Budapest my apartment, because when I went back to the superintendent of the house, he gave me that letter from the police that I shall be arrested life or death because of my illegal partisan activities. And I went with that to the Russian, whatever he was, and that was a certification that I was working against the Nazis as a partisan, and I get back my apartment, which I gave to my half-brother because I knew that I will leave Hungary, I don't need it, and his apartment was ruined and mine, not even a window was broken. So he was very happy to move in there. And I stayed with my aunt. I never moved back in that apartment anymore. I stayed with my aunt all this time when I was in Budapest or when I did my traveling. And then later we moved over to Bucharest. I married in May, and then I did that traveling, and then I came back and I told them that I just unable to do it anymore. I am physically unable, so please give me a certificate, let me a possibility to go to Palestine. And really for the work, as a thank you for the work what I did, I get a certificate to go to Palestine, which was a very big thing. And so with the first ship from Romania, from Bucharest, from Constanța, with the ship Transylvania. I went in October with my husband to Palestine. So I really arrived in October, and I think it was in 5th of October when I arrived in Palestine.
And what did you do in Palestine after the war?
We went into the kibbutz Kfar Glukson. That was the kibbutz for Hanor Hatzioni. And I was there also more sick than healthy. I wanted to work with the cows, but at that time the kibbutz needed somebody who saw brass, because they had to pay for that for an outsider, 2 English pounds, and that was too much money. So I had to sit down and do that, and I hated to sew. I learned it only because as a Jewish girl, it was the only thing what I could do. But I didn't intend in my whole life to do that. So I was very unhappy, and I was also not completely myself. You know, when you come out from a lager, you are not completely okay. Furthermore, because we were the last one who arrived, naturally the zelt where we lived was in the edge of the kibbutz. And the kibbutz was also surrounded by drat, you know, like the concentration camps. So in my mind, I was up on the North Sea where the sand is. Kfar Glukson had a lot of sand, but all Israel had a lot of sand around. So the zelt, the sand, the barbed wire, it was for me a terrible thing. I had nightmares, and I was constantly hungry, and I was constantly afraid that I will starve from hunger. So the kibbutz had very little to eat that time, almost nothing. I brought with me from Budapest to Palestine the mother of Hannah Seresh, because they asked me when I come to pick her up and bring it with me. So she was in the kibbutz, and every time I was hungry, I went ask her to please ask for them to give me some more food, because what you had enough was bread and salad. I couldn't eat bread with salad because of that milk, what she did that time. I had a constant diarrhea, and it was impossible for me to live on green salad. I needed cooked food. In that time, you get half an egg and very little cooked food, because they didn't have enough. So I always was running to Tante Senesh, please give me another one. Help me to get other one. And I hated that I had to live like this. And also I went in right to the Haganah. So they said, if I can go to the Haganah, which is physical work, why is it that I can't work always in the place where I saw? Why is it that I was bleeding like hell always? So I'm staying home. So if I'm bleed, I am not, and I'm supposed to lay in bed. How come I am going out to take the instruction from the Haganah, but I am not going into work? And so I felt miserable in the kibbutz. They didn't want to, in that time nobody talked about the lagers. And also I was almost the first ones who arrived from the lagers. Because remember, I was 45 October also in the kibbutz. Nobody wanted to believe me. When I was telling that horror story, and I was telling them because we said to each other, it was rude that time in the lager, most probably we will not survive, but if we will, we have to tell the story, they have to remember. So I really wanted to fulfill the promise what I said, but when I started to tell them what the horror, what we went through, they figured I am telling them stories. It can't be. They didn't want to hear it, they didn't want to believe it. And I took all the bread always home to my zelt, and naturally all the animals, the scorpions, the mouse, the donkey, every animal came in and eat it. So every time I wanted a piece of bread, I didn't have it. And I was screaming, they're stealing my bread, they want me to starve from hunger. Poor Dov had a hell of a time with me, because I was really like half crazy. I figured they want to kill me, they don't want to give me food, they want me to work what I don't like. So I decided I don't want to stay in the kibbutz. And after a half a year, I left the kibbutz. I went back to the Sochnut. Now the Sochnut generally didn't give anything for people who came out from the kibbutz. But me, because they knew what work I did in the organization before, I get an apartment in Holon from the Sochnut. It's called Shikundan. It was a small apartment we had with somebody together. I had one room, and the other, we had a corridor to go on, so an entrance which was for both of us. The one room, each family had one room with a tiny kitchen without a door, without anything in it, and in the corridor we had one bathroom, and for the both of us. When I get this apartment from the Sochnut, the person who get it falls in my neck and kisses me. Oh, I am so happy I am getting it with you. I'm looking at her, who are you? What's the matter? You don't recognize me? I lived in your house in Budapest. You saved my life. I said, Sarah, how many people? Sometimes 36 people were in my apartment. You expect me to remember? But that was the lucky break, because that way she respected me, and every week when it was her way to clean the bathroom, then she did it, because she remembered my house from Budapest. So she knew that she cannot tell me that it wasn't clean or wasn't okay or whatever. So I had the respect. But the funny part was, that time we really did what Kennedy here, we didn't care what is for us, but what is good for our country. And nobody was rich, and we just was happy to be there and build a country. And every tree was our child. I had 2 spoons, from everything too. And I went to work. Sarah didn't, because she had a little boy, so she was home. When I came home from work, I had nothing, because Sarah borrowed everything. So I said to her, Sarah, I have to cook too, so please give me back my pot, give me back my dish, because I need it. Fine. It went very well till one day I came home. I had 2 beds, because from the Sochnut I get 2 beds, and I cannot sleep in one bed with anybody. Sarah had only 1 bed. I am arriving one day home, and I have only 1 bed. Sarah, where is my bed? Oh, I took it, because my family came from Poland, and they have to sleep somewhere. I said, Sarah is beautiful, but I need my bed back right now. I don't give you the back. So we had a big fight. On my luck, we lived in Holon on the 1st floor, and everything came into the apartment. And a frosch, a big frosch, came in and was jumping in her room, and she was afraid of frosch. And all of a sudden I heard, Zsaba, Zsaba, Zsaba. What is it? I am going to the room. Sarah is standing on the table and screaming. I said, Sarah, what happened to you? There. I said, what's there? It's a frosch. Kill it, kill it. I said, okay, if I can catch it, I will get it out, but only if you're getting back my bed. Frosch or bed? One of you, okay, you're getting your bed. So I get her the frosch and I get my bed. She's laughing, my cousin, because the aunt of that lady was where she lived later. She was a nurse there. So she knows the story.
Tell me about your participation in the Israeli army.
Well, as I told you, I went into the Haganah in the moment when I got into Israel. And naturally, I stayed there. So we lived in Holon. Holon was, when I get out from the kibbutz, I started to work in Tel Aviv, and I worked in the same profession what I learned. I was sewing brass. And I worked by a lady, and I had to commute from Holon to Tel Aviv and back. Now, when the war started, before really the war started, the Arabs were shooting us from every side, because Bat Yam that time was surrounded, Jaffa was Arab, and Holon was surrounded. So when we went to work, we were lying by the bus, you know, not standing. When my cousin Ergi arrived to Israel, I told her, please not to come, because they are shooting. When a friend of me came, brought the bullet in her hand, look what I got. So I said to him, Yoel, you are crazy. That's Yoel. That is the fellow whose name I didn't remember when I was hiding with me in the Buddha's mountain. I said, I didn't ask you to visit me in that kind of times. You know, the bullets were flying from every direction. In the night, we were working in the Haganah, standing, trying to shmirah. Shmirah is the Hebrew word, and I don't know how to say it in. Shomer is a policeman, so somebody who has to go around and watch. So in the night we did that, and in the day we went to work. It was, we didn't have uniforms, it wasn't an army, it was still the Haganah.
What year is this approximately?
That's, I went to Israel from 45, so that's 47. Before, it was shortly before the war started. And in 48, when the war broke out already, that was different, because then we were already an army. And then the English already left. But you see, the English were very lovable. They gave everything, all the high positions, all the where the police were, the police houses were all high up. And they gave all these good places, I mean strategically good places, to the Arabs. So they had a very easy thing to shoot down to us. And the English were, they caught our weapons, they were very much against us. They were very much on the Arab side.
In what way did you particularly participate in the Haganah?
You were in the unit where you lived. You see, Haganah meant that you stayed home, you eat home, you didn't get paid, you just worked in the night, you went on to, and you went different courses, you know, to teach you how to behave and what to do.
And after the State of Israel?
After the State of Israel, I volunteered to the army. And I went into the medical corps. And my Hebrew wasn't very good that time, because where I worked I could speak German or Hungarian, and with my husband I could speak Hungarian, of course, so my knowledge of Hebrew was very limited. And I had to make a course in first aid to be in the but luckily they had Hungarians there, they helped me. I also finished in the school, I studied enough anatomy, and so I managed, and I finished very well. And then I was, 1 month they put me into Hadassah. At that time Hadassah had a hospital in Tel Aviv too. So I went into Hadassah Hospital Tel Aviv for a month to work, to get some training there. And then I was sent from time to time with somebody who needed me. So first I was in the Svivot where I lived. And my husband wasn't in the army that time, because he worked in a place which was necessary for the army, so he had he didn't have to go into the army because that position was important. But when I went in the morning, and they sent us out to this place, which was a little Arab village with the Betar. That time we still have, that was still, you see, that was before Ben Gurion put his foot down that we don't have a Betar and a Lehi and a Haganah. It was before all three still existed. And the Betar get that place, but they left it, and the Haganah had to take care of it. And we were standing there, and I arrived there in the morning, and they asked me if I know, you know, what to do. I said yes, I finished my course. And in the night, we had an attack from the Arabs. They were surrounding us with tanks. They came, and we had almost nothing. We had one machine gewehr. How you say machine gewehr in English? I don't know. It's something which shoots one after the other. So they wanted me to fill that thing where you're putting the bullets in, but they forgot to tell me how, and I did it the other opposite way, not the way the bullet comes out, but the other way around. They almost killed me for it, because naturally when they had to shoot, they couldn't, because it didn't go through, so they had to take it out. And we did like, you know, we were in a school, and it has different windows, so we were running, we were just 80 people, that's all. 2 girls and the last boys. And we went from one window to the other, was screaming and shooting out that it shall look like that we are a lot of people. And they already taught me that when they cut me, I shall take the hand grenade and open it and over that blow myself up that they shall not fall in their hands. And we thought that we will never live it through because 80 people and we were running out of ammunition and they were coming with the tanks. And all of a sudden they turned and they left. In the meantime, I was supposed to get back home at 12 midnight, so my husband went to the station to find when I am coming home, and they told him that most probably never, because the place is surrounded and no way anybody will get out.
We're going to change tapes. Tape 7, my name is Debbie Portnoy. I'm conducting an interview with Mrs. Shulamit Lack. Mrs. Lack, you mentioned that you were in the Independence Day War. What other wars were you involved in?
Well, as I said to you, that place where I was, it was during the Independence Day. The place of the name is Sarafend. And after that, I also was in the Sinai War in '56. Now, in the meantime, I divorced my first husband. I was 7 years, I don't know how you call that, when you are divorced, a divorcee. 7 years a divorcee, and in the meantime I learned a new profession. I became an X-ray technologist. After the war I went to X-ray technician school in Israel. I finished a 2-year X-ray technician course. I got my diploma, and I was sent from that school to open a place in Petah Tikva, a clinic, and when I did that and worked there, the air condition said goodbye in the dark room, and I had to call the main office, and they sent me somebody to fix that air condition, rather to say what's wrong with the air condition. And this air condition was the Kupet Holim, the sick fund where I worked, got from Germany for the restitution, so it came from a German place. And the man who was sent was a friend of the head of the department who fixing things, and he learned by him, and he was from Germany and worked in that fabric, so he knew that how to fix that machine and how to diagnose it and so far. And that's how I met my husband, because he was the fellow who came out, and that time he was on his way to come to America. He has all his papers, and we started to go together, and I didn't want to leave Israel, no way. I felt home there, and I wanted him to stay. But by that time his brother and his mother was here already, and he wanted to come here. And so I said, all right, if I get a tourist visa, I will come. He couldn't manage to get a tourist visa for me because I was born in Budapest, as you know, and as Hungarian, the quota was full, so you couldn't get me a tourist visa. The only way was to get married to him, and then he could bring me out to here. And that's what happened. I get married to him, and that's how I left Israel in '59 and came to this country, and I'm here since.
What have you been doing in the United States since you've arrived?
In the United States, I also worked as an X-ray technician. First I worked by a private doctor, and then I worked in LaGuardia Hospital till the day I retired. I was the supervisor of the X-ray department of LaGuardia Hospital. And I retired on the account of my husband's sickness, who had emphysema and was very sick and was on oxygen. So I retired when I was 59 and a half, much earlier than I really wanted to, on his account. And unfortunately, 7 years ago, he died.
How have you been spending your time since retirement?
Well, I am working in Hadassah, and I am a member of a temple where I am a member of the Sisterhood.
Which temple is that?
That Utopia Jewish Center, a conservative temple here in Queens, in Flushing. Did
you ever receive any recognition for your services in during World War II and in the other wars of Israel?
Naturally, in the Israel War, everybody who fought the Independence War and the Sinai War get his Ot. It's called Ot. Ot Sinai and Ot the Milchemet HaShichrur and Ot Sinai. But I also received two acknowledgement, or I don't know what to call it, for my work, what I did against the Nazis and for the country, which was sent to me from the Israeli government already here, which is a very big thing because they generally don't like to send to people who left the country.
What message would you like to give the world 52 years after the war?
Well, what I would like to give them that they shall be able to be tolerant to each other and learn to live with each other. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening.
Is there anything else you would like to add to your testimony?
Well, only that I am glad to see Israel born. I am glad with all the hardship that I went through to be able to be in the time when Israel was born and be a part of it.
Thank you for sharing your testimony.
And thank you very much to you. This is the picture of my grandfather, my mother's father. The picture was taken approximately in 1930. He had a garden in Buda, and it was taken there. He is the only old relative, I mean grandfather or grandmother, because he's the only one who was alive when I was born.
What was his full name?
His full name was József Lázár. This is my father in his cavalry uniform with all his medals. He was very highly decorated cavalry officer. His name was Dr. Leopold Gara, and the picture was taken approximately also around 1929 or 30, something like that.
How did you get this photo?
I find it when I get back home around, in a box with all these certain papers, and my mother hid everything down in the basement where we lived in a big box in the apartment. So she packed everything, not furniture, but dishes and everything else, and we put it down. And when I came back, I found a lot of things was stolen, but pictures and papers nobody needed, so I did find all this. This is my mother, Margaret Lázár. I don't know when that picture was made, what is the date. It was much before I was born. But it was taken in Budapest, of course. This picture is also about my mother and myself in our garden in Sashalom. This is naturally a much later picture than the previous one. Here I was already approximately 12 or 13 years old.
And what was your mother's full name again?
My mother's full name was Margit Lázár.
And your full name?
My full name is that time Maria Gara. She is my half-sister for my mother's first husband. Her name is Marianne Fürst, and the picture was taken in 1922 or in 23, before I was born. Unfortunately, she died when she was 10 years old. She is not alive anymore. This is a picture on me, Maria Gara. It was taken approximately, I must be 14 or 15 years old. It has to be 32 or 33, something like that.
What were the circumstances behind the
It was
photo?
a Purim party, and that was the dressing for the Purim party.
How did you get this photo?
I get this photo among all the rest of the photos. As I said to you, they were hiding in the luggage where we put it down with my mother with all the rest of the stuff. Everything what they figured they can't use, we can find. Whatever they could use or wasn't hidden completely was there. This is a picture from the elementary school where I went in Zugló, the Erdei Iskola. I am in the second row in the right, before the teacher, the little head what you can see, that's me. And that must be around, I was 6 years old, so, or 7, so it has to be around 30, 31, something like that. This is a picture of me after I finished the officer course in Israel in 55, approximately, I think it was 55. It was before the Sinai War. And I am there on the third row, the second from left. This is my birth certificate from Budapest. That I was born in 1924, on 22nd of September. And the birth certificate says not just that I am the daughter of Dr. Gara Lipót and Lázár Margit, but also that my father was highly decorated in the war. It was necessary during the wartime because that gave in the beginning quasi a Schutzpass for me and for my family because of my father's high decorations.
How did you get the copy of the birth certificate?
The copy for the birth certificate I can get any time. If I go to Budapest now and asking for a birth certificate, I will get it, and I will get it written on it. So that's no problem. Hanoar Hatzioni, the youth organization where I belonged, exists today too in Israel, and they gave out a book in memory of the Holocaust, of the members who survived and who died, and mainly for the reasons that they wanted the Hungarian Jewish youth now to know what happened during the war, because they have no memory on it. Hungary didn't taught them anything about what happened in the Holocaust, and our organization wanted them to know what happened, that we didn't march like the cows to the place. And they wrote that book, which is give the whole, not just what happened under the Nazis, but also the whole history of this organization from the very beginning until the end. So among these, the pages naturally is a very big chapter about the Holocaust and about what we did before. And you will see here also a chapter about that Moshava in Balaton-Boglár, which I mentioned before, that helped us survive with the work what taught us there from the Polish people and from the Hungarian people. This is the picture from 43 in Balaton-Boglár for the fellows and girls who were together there in this camp. You have the Polish and the Hungarian Hanoar Hatzioni people. I am in the front row, in the bottom, in the middle among the boys. This is the certificate I received from the organization to go to Palestine. That I got in Bucharest, and I went to Palestine in 45 October. It's on the name of Borso Di Maria because in that time I was already married to my first husband. And naturally it's from 45 because I arrived in Israel October 45 with the Transylvania, which was the first legal ship which left Constanza to Palestine. This is a certificate that I finished X-ray technician school in Israel in Bellinzon, rather in the Kupat Holim. And this is the certificate that I am a certified X-ray technologist after a 2-year school, which was in Tel Aviv, in Zamenhof, and in Bellinzon. This is to certify that I am an officer in the Israeli army, and I'm very proud of it because I really worked very hard to get that certificate. It was not an easy training. This is something that I am very proud of, because I am very proud of being in the Israeli army and contribute something to the being of Israel be born. This is my dog tag, and the first one is there for fighting the both wars, the Independent War and the Sinai War, so it's combined together. Below it, for what I did against the Nazis, and next to it, for fighting for the country, and below it they are just two emblems. One is the emblem from the Medical Corps, and the other one is the emblem from the Israeli army. As I said, I feel that at least I could contribute a little bit for the country of Israel, and I am very, very proud of that.
Please introduce me to your cousin.
She's Elizabeth Friedman, and she's my cousin who visiting now from Israel. She's here since Monday and staying with me 3 weeks, and I'm very happy to have her here. She is my mother's sister's daughter, and I have very few relatives left. We all together have very few relatives left, so we are very happy to have each other.
Thank you for sharing your testimony.
Thank you very much for your patience to listen to my testimony, which is just a tiny part for the whole story, but you can write 3 books. So you're just trying to do the best and making as short and sweet as possible. And I'm just very, very sorry, as long as I live, that I couldn't save. I saved so many people, but I couldn't save Kurzweil Ruth, who was in my responsibility, and whose parents, as I met when I came back. Yes, I have to say it. And I couldn't tell them that she's alive, and I couldn't tell them that I brought her back. I should have told them. They couldn't, because I couldn't bring her back, and it hurts me as long as I live, just as it hurt me that I couldn't save my mother. But that's what it is.
Thank you.
And thank you again.